Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Cabbage Head Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Becomes Rogue Hero? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Guys look, it's Deku. How does a quirkless freak like you still come here and take place from people who really need it, huh? After Midoriya Izuku was declared quirkless, his life turned upside down. He just wished he could run away from reality. He just turned 4 and entered the doctor's office with his mom. The white rooms with the natural colored floor really took the life out of him, but not as much as the doctor's next sentence. "Sorry boy, you better give it up." The words felt heavy on his heart like 1,000 rocks suddenly regaining gravity and pulling you down. His little All Might figurine fell out of his hand, alongside with his hope to be a hero. "Are you sure?" His mom tried to bargain. The short-goggled man pointed at the X-ray of Izuku's leg. "You see this little joint there? That's an extra joint that only quirkless people have. We still don't have it explained scientifically why, but that's enough of a proof." The disappointed look on his mom's face will never disappear from his mind, as she picked up the toy from the floor using her quirk. They left the office and met outside with Hisashi. "Well, what is it?" Inko couldn't keep her look straight into her husband's eyes, not to mention Izuku, who stared blankly into the void. No hiding from the truth. What would he tell Kachin? And the other kids at school? Can he still be a hero? The ride in the car back was quiet. Nobody was able to place one word, and the tension could be felt like invisible walls made out of strings about to rip. Only raindrops falling on the car could be heard. When they reached home, what felt like 2 hours, they entered the small apartment. Then, out of the blue, Hisashi came and slapped Izuku on the cheek. Inko stood frozen in her place, in shock. That was the beginning of Izuku's new life, led by discrimination. When the kids at school found out that he was quirkless, they wouldn't stop laughing, teasing him, or stay away from him in disgust. A couple years later, when he became 6, the teachers at school couldn't bat an eye. His situation was normal to them. He was just a quirkless weakling. Just like Kachin and Hisashi always said. Right before middle school, they started bullying him physically and not just with words. Izuku didn't dare to fight back. And even if he tried, the teachers would pretend like it's nothing, or punish him for things he didn't do. Katsuki went silent most times, and tried to ignore him when he could, unless the extras would expect him to press his charge. His dad beat him almost every day with and without his fire-breathing quirk. It didn't matter. The only thing that mattered was how much it hurt. How normal it got. Normal. His mom couldn't protect him when her husband got drunk. She went out so she wouldn't get in trouble with him, and left Izuku alone after school. But Izuku was smart, and he knew he needed a place to hide for when his dad gets angry. When he turned 7, he found the rooftop of the neighbor's building. He used it to hide and sometimes sleep in, so he built a small tent near the solar panels, half underneath them. It wasn't really a tent, just some piled blankets he found in the closet, which he connected with some lost clothespins. When he turned 9, his dad found the small camp, and threw everything he built off the roof, dragging him back home violently and kicking him, burning him, and punching him until he almost needed a hospital. But instead he got locked in his room for the weekend. Izuku's room was almost empty, that's why it was the most organized room in the entire house. The rest of it was bloody, burnt, or messy with cans of beer randomly bent on every piece of furniture. That of course includes the floor. When Izuku passed to Aldra Middle School, Hisashi left. Just like so. The bullying never stopped, but Inko and Izuku really thought they could run a normal life at last. Inko found a job that's well-paying, and Izuku was getting ahead of his material in school. He already got to a high school level studying. He still kept his analysis notebooks updated every once in a while with heroes, mostly new heroes or underground heroes he hasn't heard of yet. At school the kids kept bragging about how cool Bakugo's quirk is. And Bakugo kept bragging about how he plans on going to UA, and be the first and only one from Aldra Middle School to be there. But at least there was a sense of normalcy in Izuku's life. Of course, that all changed after about a year when Inko's husband came back. She tried to kick him out. She didn't want the circle of suffering all over again. And she fought him until he got the nerves up his mind. He reached a hand to his back pocket and pulled out a gun. Izuku got home to find his house a crime scene. He felt tears well up his eyes, but he can't. He can't let his emotions take control now. He snuck inside, and when he passed the BLD puddle near the kitchen, his eyes caught a note on the fridge. I stopped paying to your school, so don't you even think about showing your face in there again. If your friends ask, tell them you went online, not that you even have any. The kids at school would have loved his dad. Maybe that could have made him popular? Izuku ignored the water refiling his eyes and cheeks, and took a backpack. He stuffed everything he could inside it. He would rather live in the streets than to go live with Hisashi alone, without school. And his mum, his only hope, his only reason to be alive, just disappeared. He didn't know what to feel. Emptiness, perhaps? But there was more than that. His emotions were tangled and unclear, so he stuffed them all inside, bottled them up, and left to find a place to stay for the night. Of course, he didn't have any other relatives, and going to the Bakugos was not an option. He didn't know a lot of his neighbors, and most of those who did know him already had him marked as the quirkless, useless kid. He wandered through the streets of Musutafu when he felt a weird goo wrapping him up. He couldn't breathe, and the liquid was suffocating him. Don't worry, kiddo, this won't be long, but you'll make a great skin suit. Wait, relax, boy, you really are my hero. What does he mean? Izuku was stuck in his conscious. Was he going to die? Unable to move, breathe, or talk. He was only left with his thoughts, and even that soon got swallowed into the darkness. He woke up to the feeling of a slapping hand on his cheek. Softly, but still trying to wake him up. He sat up straightly, flinching away slightly from the touch. Are you all right, my boy? In front of him stood no other but the mighty All Might himself. He put a plastic bottle in his pocket that seemed to contain the sludge villain that took over him. All Might? He screeched in surprise. Yes, that's me. But if you'll excuse me, I must go now. He said. All right, but I have a question for you, if that's okay. Izuku tried. If you want my autograph, then you'll be pleased to find that I already signed your notebook, he said with his signature smile. He turns to go, but when he jumped, he seemed unpleased to see Midoriya clinging onto his leg. Can you let me go, because I really have to go? He demanded. If I let go now, I'll fall. Oh, right, of course. He landed them both on a roof. If you want an autograph for a friend, I'll be glad to give it to you. He goes, thank you, but that's not what I wanted to ask. Izuku continued. I was just wondering is it possible for me to become a hero? Even without a quirk? All Might took a second to consider the question. I'm afraid that no, you'll just be a burden and only get hurt. But try to be a police officer or something if you want to save people. They help a lot too. What? Now I must take my leave, my boy. All Might said something, and Izuku knows he should have listened, but the words felt like they drowned in cement, and then tried to come back to his mind. The moment All Might jumped away, with steams covering for some reason, Izuku's legs failed to hold his weight and he fell on his knees. He felt wetness on his face, but it doesn't matter to him anymore. Now almost every thread of hope and any sense of normalcy he had left had popped. He was truly alone. Izuku decided to spend the night on that roof since nobody came. He looked around and explored the place. There wasn't a lot. It was just him and the sky. He picked a spot near the stairwell of the building and emptied his bag. He looked through what he managed to sneak from his house. A few clothes like a sweater, extra sweatpants, and others, a water bottle, some money he took from his dad's vault, his notebook, and a pen. And they say the pen is mightier than the sword. He looked at his money. He had enough for a few months, but he can go to his dad again to take some more. It won't count as stealing because he isn't paying for his school anymore, right? Izuku really hoped so. He put his stuff aside and went to buy himself some food. He had to eat after all. He turned to a grocery shop around the corner and found some water and cheap fast food that can survive without a refrigerator. When he reached the cashiers to pay, he saw a fabric face mask on sale. He stared at it. He could use something to make him remain unidentified. While he made his progress in the line, he snatched one of the masks to add to his payment. The cashier looked tired and didn't really care why a small child is buying groceries alone. As soon as he left the store with dull sound of bells as the door closed behind him, he opened the mask and put it on. He returned to the roof to hide his new stuff. When he finally got to the last staircase, he opened the door to the roof and threw the new stuff near his bag. Now what? This was obviously just a temporary thing. July's sun was burning. Soon he will be turning. How was it already July? It's just been a day alone like that, right? But no, it's been a week and a half. Izuku is about to become 12 years old without his dear mom. Unable to move to his next classes like every other normal second year in middle school. But at least he wasn't gonna be a bother to Kachin and the other teachers. Stupid Deku always in the way, right Bakugo? Still bothering to try and be a hero, you villain Wanabe. You dash push, don't dash push, stand a chance. Kick to the rib. Why won't you hope to get a quirk in your next life, and take a swan dive off the roof? Katsuki's and the others' words from that time Izuku told them he was going to apply to UA too. He remembers all the mean nicknames they always called him. But that was the day Katsuki learned what swan dive means, and he just wanted to try it on someone, right? It just happened to be Izuku. So, for the first time in his short life he found himself unbeaten. This felt new to him. New but good. Like singing a song that's not off pitch. His first month outside of home was coming to an end, and it went more than all right. He managed to save more than 2/3 of his money, and right now he felt too restless to sleep, so he decided to take a walk around. He just wanted to shake off some energy he had, and meanwhile continue his search for a homeless shelter. He really didn't think of that sooner. Then he heard a blood-curdling scream. His reflexes, the ones he used to find villain fights to analyze, led him forward to a small alley. When he made the turn, what came into visual was awful. A kid younger than him, laying on the dirty ground, completely bruised, and a man hovering above him trying to protect him from something Izuku couldn't see, but he could sense. His mind was racing and he couldn't focus on a single thing. Immediately he scolded himself in his mind for just standing there and watching, so he got closer carefully. "Hey, excuse me sir, are you all right?" he tried. "Should I call the police?" The man looked at him, eyes full of horror. "Run," he whispered. The kid beside the man groaned and moved a bit, as a bad feeling twisted the air. The man's gaze moved from Izuku to something behind him. He turned around and scanned his surrounding for anything useful in combat, even before knowing what he was facing. In front of him stood a man, no, a mutant of half a man, half an owl. The kid behind him got up and the man hugged him close. Probably a father and son, since they both share the same bright flaming orange hair. Izuku backed away from the villain and froze. What is he going to do? He can't wait for a hero to come, because in the night it takes them longer to react. So he did what he knew best, analyze the villain in front of him. Quirk type, mutation. Quirk. Description by first look. Quirk can give user the properties of an owl, obviously. Specific user info, said user have feather wings, huge claws for legs, night vision, probably, and higher-leveled stealth abilities. Night vision. Izuku's thoughts clicked with a finish plan, but the only question left was how will he start? "Kid, what do you think you're doing?" The owl person finally spoke. "Are you trying to get in the middle of my business?" "Huh." His voice raises while his wings spread out in attempt to make himself look bigger and scarier. Izuku hates to admit it, but it frightened him till the depth of his soul. "Not at all. I was just passing by." It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the full truth as well. His voice sounded a bit muffled by his face mask. He continued to search his environment nervously until he found what he was looking for to execute his plan. His eyes landed on a green sign with the writing exit, and a small light behind it gives it a little glow. Underneath it laid a crooked car's license plate. Then he started running towards it, but the owl guy grabbed him with his sharp claws by Izuku's shoulders before he could get anywhere far. He struggled for a moment as they took off to the night sky, but then managed to hit the claws strong enough to get them to release him. He droped into a roll, or at least tried to, and failed miserably without letting the hit stop him from hurrying back to the license plate, grabbing it fast and smashing the green glass sign. Exit signs like these have small generators for times when the power runs out. He snatched the small light bulb out of place hoping for the best, and turned back to winged guy that stood right in front of him. Then, he raised himself onto his tippy toes and pushed the light straight to his eyes. Owls have very sensitive sight that has benefits to working in the night. But after shoving bright light this close, they become temporary blind. Izuku used that weakness to get a chance to win the fight. For the finish move, he waved the car's plate on the back of the owl's head and he fell down unconscious. Izuku was left huffing. He turned back to the shaking father and son. "Are you two okay? What's your name?" he asked and got closer. "Thank you, my name is Akamoro." The man smiled at him. His son looked terrible and terrified, on the edge of crying. How Izuku knew the feeling. He crouched next to them and digged in his pocket for a few seconds. "Hey there, little man. What do you think? Dinosaurs or rockets?" He pulled out his hand holding 3 colorful band-aids. The boy shyly pointed at the single orange rocket's band-aid. Izuku put aside the rest and opened it up. "Wow, you're so brave. Now you're a true astronaut," he declared as he finished sticking the band-aid on the kid's largest scratch. His dad grinned sadly. "That's it, Mr. Akamori. I think you should call the police now," Izuku mentioned and got up to leave. "Wait." He stopped and turned his head back. "What's your name?" Izuku really didn't know what to say. If he were to tell his real name, they would tell the cops, and the cops will find him since he is a witness and find out about his situation and take him to the foster care system. And that is never good for quirkless kids. Most of them don't come out alive. So Izuku had to compromise. "It doesn't matter." Then it turned and walked away. He stayed there for a little longer on a near fire escape, just to make sure the police arrive to arrest the villain before he wakes up and attacks them again, or maybe even somebody else. Izuku stepped through the streets as he returned to the roof he was staying on. He couldn't really focus on his surrounding, not that it's his fault of course, he was pretty much in shock. When he finally got back and sat down, he let his grip loose and noticed a piece of metal falling from his hand and crashing strong with the ground. Poor neighbors. He didn't even notice that the license plate was in his hands all the way back, and he never let it go until now. When he finally decided to go to sleep, the only thought that ran free in his head was, "Man, I really should find a place with a public sink to brush my teeth at." Then he got back to another good rest with night terrors hunting him. The next morning he woke up with dark circles under his eyes again, the feeling of his entire body aching from bruises and scratches all over, and a new motivation to find a sink. Also, he found out he could truly help people that need it. So he opened his notebook and analyzed the fight to figure out what he could have done better. Izuku's new favorite place was the library. He even made a list of advantages. It's quite. 2. He can study however he likes whenever he wants. 3. He can charge his phone. 4. Free Wi-Fi. 5. Access to public computers for research on heroes that act at night. 6. The librarian is nice. 7. He got a small job there. So first off, yes, study. If you want to survive such modern world, you need education. Maybe he will even save enough money to pay for a high school, and if not, then find a cheap online one. Second, he can use a computer freely to get updated on villain fights in the news, or find cool heroes to be careful not to meet when he goes out at night. His favorite one so far is Eraserhead. He almost managed to stay completely off the net, but Izuku found a few videos of him in action, and God, the guy is the definition of a true hero. His movements are so accurate and he isn't even sweating. The guy is a whole new level, far better than All Might and his clumsy moves after the injury. Yes, he found out he's not an idiot. Not that he hates All Might or something, but you know what they say, never meet your heroes. Third, the librarian, a nice 36-year-old lady called Mrs. Inazaki, who gives him a cheap-paying job to help organize the place, is a very good-hearted person with a husband that works in the hero industry. They get enough money to live the life they want, so when she saw the kid that comes to study every day in front of her asking to help, she immediately offered him the job. She would rather see money go to the right people. Mrs. Inazaki has long purple hair and dark yellow eyes. She always dresses nice, and her quirk, change the colors of objects, really helps with that. Sometimes she likes to use it on her own hair. After he finishes up organizing the books people returned, he sat on one of the computers and started looking for new posts on Eraserhead. After a while he gave in for the day and looked for new self-defense videos to practice later. He truly wants to become stronger, especially when he has no quirk to protect him. He scrolls around the internet and finds a few cool videos that work on techniques and some videos that work on muscles and power balance. Then he memorized the workout in his mind to train on his free time. When it got late, the library was closing up Mrs. Inazaki, so she gave him his daily payment and locked the doors. Then they waved goodbye and went each on their own way. It became like his daily ritual. The car's crooked license plate was still lying on the floor of the roof Izuku was staying on. He put his bag down and started training. He started it not too long ago, but he can feel how he gets stronger each week. Since that night fight with the Owl Man, he started to go out at midnight to go around the streets of Musutafu, in the red light district, and help people as much as he can. With his hoodie and face mask on, no one recognized him. One night he caught a glimpse of Eraserhead jumping over the roofs, and he tried to chase him up the fire escape but got disappointed that he wasn't fast enough. So he added running and parkour to his daily exercises. He scribbled everything down on a notebook that used to purpose for hero analysis. Workout routine, push-ups, jogging, running up and down the stairwell, plank, extra core power, parkour. Right now he was capable of finishing 3 to 4 sets, and that was incredible progress since before he could barely make 2. After training all evening, he could sleep better since he was tired a lot more. The next day when he opened the computer as usual, he noticed a notification about a recently uploaded video with the tag #underground_heroes__cool. Izuku excitedly opened the window and found a blurry-looking person on a shaky phone held up to take a picture and document the flurry moment. The man took off instantly and the video shut down. But Izuku recognized the crystal-clear white scarf around his collarbone. He took out a few papers with sketches from his pocket and added a few more arrows to the undetailed character drawn with a pen. He mumbled a bit when he updated his knowledge on the hero and his amazing capture weapon. Luckily for him, today was a calm day with only 4 to 5 visitors at a time. Hero name, Eraserhead. Civilian name, still unknown. Quirkless. Specific user info. Can erase someone's quirk by looking at the user. According to opinions online, and the possession of goggles that provide protection to the eyes. Specializes in close combat. Support items. Capture weapons, scarf, knife, well hidden. Extra, scarf movements and controls still unknown. He finished up early, got his payment, and left the walls of books behind. He got extra motivation today, and he's going to extract the best out of it. He is going to help so many people and make this world a safe place. Especially for those who are often forgotten by society and the limelight heroes. Eraserhead was having the most boring shift ever. Not that it's bad, it just means that the crime rate got lower, right? But no. When he returns to the police station to get himself a cup of coffee and perhaps chat with Detective Tsukaushi Naomasa, he finds villains and criminals in the amount of a normal night. What's going on? Is there a new underground hero around? He asked the detective and pointed his mug at the full cells. Tsukaushi peeked to where Aizawa pointed and sighed. We believe there is someone trying to save people. Without a proper pro-hero license by witnesses, but we can never get a hold of him because he can somehow just run away every time. He wears a cheap face mask and a hood, so we have utterly nothing about him. Aizawa can feel himself getting tired more and more with every word. We were thinking on getting some underground pros on the case to help. Naomasa informs him. It actually took us a few good months to find his first appearance, but here it is, right in front of you. He waved AF a few papers from the file and slammed them on the desk. We were hoping that on his first times he might got sloppier and we could get a lead. He added with a sigh. Even though every other witness says he can't be recognized. But he is nice. Aizawa dug through the words tieredly, without paying much attention, and put the pages back in the brown folder. Alright, let's go interview some witnesses. We do have to hope they remember it well enough, 'cause it was about 2 years ago. All Tsukaushi could do was nod in agreement. The white paper said the names. Mr. Akamori, Imaware. Mr. Akamori, Mitsuda. Family relation, father and son. Address, XXXXXXXXXXST. The red light district, Musutafu. So Aizawa and Tsukaushi left to interrogate the two in hopes for a new lead on the case. Izuku was never sure how he managed to stay alone this long. 2 whole years haven't been easy. He had multiple financial expenses, more than he thought would be. Like a new toothbrush and toothpaste, or vegetables. He really missed the taste of carrots and bell peppers. One time he almost got kicked out of the roof, but he managed to hide just on time. He got a lot stronger, and his movements became sharper, more accurate and powerful. He filled up about 3 papers about Eraserhead by now, and he even found his last name from a conversation he had recorded with Present Mike. Aizawa. Even to All Might he wasn't such a fanboy. When it started snowing and raining in the winter, he just got inside the stairwell and slept near the door until it would stop. One time he desperately needed money for a cold medicine, so he went back to his old house and found the entire home in boxes. His dad was moving out. Izuku didn't know where, and that scared him. It terrified him that the only person he could go back to was now gone. Forever. He was truly alone. He snuck inside with a sneeze that blowed his cover if there was anyone there. He went straight up and searched his room. It was mostly empty, just like he left it. He searched for anything he could use and carry with him when he remembered. A memory from a few good years ago. He and Kachin got the same limited edition All Might card from pocket money they got from their moms. They were so happy. He had to hide the card someplace his dad won't find. He hurried back to his closet. It was always kind of old and empty, but it never really mattered to him. He opened the door and found 4 shelves and 3 drawers. He took the last one off its hinges and released a breath he didn't know he was holding as his eyes widened. The All Might card sat there, along with extra 5,000 yen, about $30. He didn't know what to spend it on at the time. He took the rest of his clothes with it and walked back to buy himself that stupid cold medicine. But right now, on his second summer, he was doing really good. Perhaps the best he had ever been. He even saw Mr. Akamaru and his son walking in the streets again on one of the days. The bright orange smiley duo looked so happy again. It made Izuku's heart flutter. He felt in control of his own life now. He felt safe as much as possible in the streets. Aizawa stared at the 2 fire orange ginger heads that he has tea with. Alongside him Detective Tsukaushi, noting down a few things. Before we begin, my name is Detective Tsukaushi Naomesa, and by law I'm obligated to mention that I have a lie detector quirk that allows me to know if you tell the truth or not. This is Underground Pro Hero Eraserhead. Now, what do you remember about the incident 2.5 years ago? You were listed as victims of a villain attack by a guy with an owl quirk that attacked you and your son? And please do not spare any details. We were actually on our way back home from visiting Mitsuda's best friend. Mr. Akamori looked at his son. When the guy decided to try and take my wallet. When I disagreed to give it to him, he started scratching us both with his claws and hitting us, and I froze. He lowered his head slightly at the words. Naomesa gestured him that it's true, and he may continue. And then someone came. I think he was wearing a dark hoodie and a face mask, so I didn't really see his face. He sounded like a kid to me. He came in and fought the owl guy in a super smart way. Like, the kid just found an old license plate and took an exit lamp and temporarily blinded the guy so he could knock him out. Aizawa and Tsukaushi shared a look. The detective looked sadly impressed, but Eraserhead was lost. A kid? Walking around the city at nights for 2 years? God knows, maybe more. He scanned the house a bit when his eyes landed on a small picture wall of the 2. Except one of the frames didn't hold a photo. Instead, he saw a small orange band-aid with rockets on it. Maybe his first scratch? He thought to himself. Mr. Akamura followed his gaze and smiled. The kid gave it to Mitsuda to encourage him to stop crying. It was very kind of him. Ever since he is his hero, so we kept it. Is it possible that his DNA will be on it? He asked Tsukaushi quickly as the wind. It is possible, so we might take it to the lab just in case. And don't worry, you will get it back. He added. We need to go, but we'll keep in touch. Thank you for the tea. They all bowed and the 2 left. As they both sit silently in the police car, waiting for the light to turn green, Aizawa sipped his coffee. Where did he bring it from? The guy's a real mystery. So, a kid, huh? The evidence bag with the small band-aid in a frame shook with the car's engine. It was a frustrating moment for the both of them. On one side, the sneaky person that has been avoiding them for over 2 years is a kid. On the other it's a kid. They need to get him off the streets. Who knows what makes him do this? Of course life couldn't leave him alone. I'm so sorry Izuku-kun, but the city hall wanted to buy the library, and my husband and I wanted to move out somewhere peaceful, so we sold it out. Mrs. Inazuki wore a nice puffy dress with some hero merchandise logo on it. Izuku couldn't bring himself into asking where she bought it. It's really fine. He smiled. I'm just sad that you're leaving. He really was, except that he was more concerned about his financial situation. Mrs. Inazuki grinned at him as well, but her smile seemed sad and didn't reach her eyes. Are you sure you're going to be all right? He nodded. Yeah, I already finished my school stuff, but I'm going to miss you. Tears welled up from too much stuff going on. He wasn't sure how to continue his life. Most places won't expect a small child like him. Especially not a quirkless burden like him. A moment later he found himself in a nice, warm hug. You're going to do just fine. Just trust yourself. She let go, and Izuku waved her goodbye for the day. And who knows, maybe forever. As usual to try and keep his life steady, he went out at night to see if anyone needs help. Except that he just stumbled upon his favorite hero, Eraserhead. He turned quickly and started running away to try and vanish from his eyesight. Kid. Stuff. Hey Eraserhead. He said shakily. You know who I am? He sounded surprised. Izuku tried to back off, but Eraserhead caught a glimpse of that. Never mind that. What are you doing at this time outside? Izuku looked a bit lost in thoughts. I wanted to take a walk. I have a lot of energy in the night. He went for it. On the roof? Weird. He hadn't even noticed he was on the roof up until now. It's a good lookout point. I wanted to see the stars, they're really pretty, and they calm me down. How about I accompany you on your way home? It's dangerous at this time and there are a lot of villains. Aizawa suggested nicely to not raise any suspicious thoughts in the boy. No thank you. Izuku spit out quickly and scrambled away as fast as he could. Aizawa ran after him, but when he looked over the edge of the fire escape, the kid was gone. A quirk maybe? He sighed deeply and left to update his case file. Izuku waited 5 minutes after Aizawa left until he got up and left the nearest staircase he found in a hurry. Not his worst interaction with people so far, but not his best either. He just hoped Eraserhead didn't think he was weird. He didn't even know he was quirkless yet, and Izuku don't want it to change. He can't bear to watch another hero break his heart again. Hey Deku, why do you even exist? You just take air that can have better use than you. The kid from his class with the boulder quirk came up to him. That's because he is useless. The kid who can take out his eyes joined him, and they laughed together. He finds himself behind the school's backyard, curled up against a wall. Kicked coming from all over his body. The kid with the wings quirk slammed his head on the hot, summer ground. He can still taste the BLD. The kid he was trying to protect from them ran away. That's good. Maybe he can call someone. Then he saw Bakugo, standing at the side with a blank stare Izuku couldn't read. Only the faded sounds of explosions coming from his direction, but he was never sure if the impact arrived or not. He stopped feeling. Then everything changes. His father's face, angry and drunk, watching him, yelling. His mom trying to get to him, but no help. She's out of reach. Izuku wakes up. It's almost winter and the rain started falling on his hair. He was starting to run out of money. He has to focus on buying food. He can refill his water bottle somewhere for free. He will find something. He has to. He got off the cold floor and went out to look for a job, which was a lot harder than he expected, especially without the network. Without computers or phone battery, it was basically pointless. So he had to go outside and interact with the real world. With no major success. He even lied about his age, but the problem was that nobody fell for it, or when they asked him about his quirk he got kicked out immediately. He went out at sunset and opened his notebook. He made a list of places that might take him in, but slowly every place he wrote down had a rough line covering it. It felt so frustrating. But right now he wasn't going to let all his strong work go to waste. He still had more people to save, more points to prove. He can't give up now, can he? So he decided to analyze a few limelight heroes to calm himself. What are you thinking about? He flinched at the sudden voice, and turned around to see the one and only Eraserhead. His timings are getting out of control. Finding a job. He answered without thinking. It was a total accident, and Aizawa was going to make the best out of it. Why would you need a job? You should probably think more of school right now, don't you think? Izuku's mind raced non-stop, trying to come up with a believable excuse for I don't want anything that will work. He opened his mouth without knowing what's gonna come out of it, preparing for the worse. Then, like someone heard his prayers, they heard a loud boom, and a smoke mushroom filled the air. Izuku jumped a bit in his place and started running towards it. He could have sworn he heard Aizawa cursing under his breath while catching up on him. As they arrived, a whole building was on fire, and about 5 villains destroying everything in their path to escape. Many people were injured and spread around the place. Aizawa caught a glimpse of the kid parkouring his way down to help some people, while he opened the comm link to call for backup forces. Everyone available, this is Eraserhead requesting for backup. I need all hands on deck. Copy that, Eraser. We're on our way. The heroes were dropping in slowly, depending on how close they were to the area. Some of them were half in gear, half in civilian clothes, after finishing their shifts for the day. Eraserhead. Someone above him called and landed beside him. Hux. Good to see you after your shift again. He mumbled. I have to agree, but last time was on better circumstances. What's the status? His red feathers scouting and evaluating the damage. 5 villains armed with explosives. Injured all over the place, and a building caught fire. Hawks passed the report in the hero-secured network, and they both headed to fight the villains. Passing by injured people, Aizawa noticed that more than half of them were already patched up, which was really fast. But the funny thing is that the paramedics haven't arrived yet. Izuku scanned the destruction zone. He pulled out a few bandages he kept for emergencies, and ran to a lady with gashes all over her hands. She looked in pain, and on the brink of breaking down. He kneeled next to her. Excuse me, miss, do you need help? She nodded, shaking. He noticed she was starting to hyperventilate. What's your name? She sent him one look, and put her arm in front of him as he showed her the rolls of bandages. My name is Yumiko. Is it going to started cleaning her arm and wrapping it up to get the bleeding to stop? All right, Yumiko, try to focus on things you can smell and hear. For example, you can hear me, right? He tried to get her to calm down, and after he made sure he was fine, he sent her to where the paramedics are supposed to arrive and went to help other people. He helped a small family that were caught up in the explosion, a dog owner and their dog, and a few more, but he ran out of first aid supplies. He will just take some more when the ambulances will arrive. He went up one of the roofs for a lookout point and realized that the explosion had blocked all the roads, and it's going to take a while for the ambulance and fire department to enter the fire zone. So he jumped down and ran inside the flaming building. Like the lucky idiot he is, he had his face mask on to fire some of the thick smoke filling the air. Is there anyone inside? He yelled. There was nothing but the sound of the sparkles of the fire, and some furniture lighting up and collapsing on the floor. Then a soft, I'm up here. He rushed up the stairs, slowly losing his breath from all the Kota. He bustled around the second floor, lifting everything he could, desperately searching for the source of the voice. Meanwhile, Eraserhead was fighting the villains alongside with Hawks, Rocklock, Present Mike, and Kamui Woods. Also more heroes like Majestic and Ingenium focused more on evacuation of the area. The guy he was targeting and going after was a bit clumsy, and he was relying too much on his quirk, which wasn't a huge contribution to combat. Goods, he thought as he cuffed the man, they might be getting out of this attack with minimal damage. Unfortunately, he spoke too soon. The strong fire fist came from behind the villain who was up against Hawks, and sent him flying, or more accurate, free falling on the hot flaming building. The wall crumbled at the hit, and the poor villain got knocked out strong, dropping back to the floor with a few cement pieces. Endeavor. What on earth were you thinking? I agree, with all the respect, it was very illogical and dangerous. Scolding could be heard from all over the place. Aizawa couldn't help but nod in agreement. He hated the guy. So rash and violent. Present Mike joined him after handing the tied-up villain to the police. I can't believe I'm saying this, but you're right. Aizawa sighed tearfully. Then he remembered that the kid was still here too, and he could be anywhere. even trapped in the fire. He rushed towards the building, Mike behind him. Show you to wait. Where are you going? Is it because you're too embarrassed to admit that I'm right? He tried to lighten up the mood. Remember that vigilante I told you about over dinner few weeks ago? When I just found out he was a kid. He's still here too. Izuku was panicking. The person who called him here can be everywhere. They could be stuck, unconscious, or even dead. He really hoped they were still alive. His inner old classmates were screaming at him to give up, while his mind never stopped believing. He felt the heat invading his hoodie and the nerves on his skin burning in pain. He looked into the last room of the floor. If someone got stuck here during the explosion, now is the only chance to get them out. The moment he stepped into the room, his eyes burnt, but he kept them open anyway. A massive amount of fire caught on a room full of wooden furniture, and in the middle of the room there was a man. He was laying on the floor, whispering, "Help me." So Izuku got inside, adrenaline blocking away the pain. He carefully lifted the man, when he heard a crash, and the wall crumbled inside and outside. Skipping over cement rocks, he took the man down the stairs. Huffing and craving for oxygen, he reached back to the entrance, only to be welcomed by Eraserhead and present Mike with a panicked expression. They were just going to get inside. Izuku wonders why. Were there any other people that he missed? He really hoped not. "Kid, are you all right?" Wow, little listener, good job. It was real. He wasn't delusional because of his lack of oxygen. He was just talking with two pro heroes. "Only go to your present. Are you friends with his Eraserhead?" He blurted out. Mike smiled as Eraserhead took the man out of his hands. "Oh, slow down there, listener. First let's make sure you're okay. And get away from the building because it can collapse any moment." Izuku caught his breath and collected himself. "I'm fine, but what if there are more people trapped inside?" he asked, holding himself not to scratch an itchy burn. "Don't worry, the fire department will handle it." It made the kid's shoulders slump a bit in relief, but he couldn't help but think, what if they won't? It will all be his fault. "How about we check you out for injuries first?" Aizawa reminded them. "I'm all good, thank you, gotta go." He ran and went past the ambulances to snatch a few bandages and burn cream. He can do it on his own. What do I need to do to get him off the streets? Shoyuta and Yamada were sitting on the same roof that the kids sat on when they heard the explosion. The hero duo were skimming through the abandoned notebook. The kid was real smart and talented, and he has potential. "It will happen," promised him Yamada. "He already trusts you." "I bet he didn't have that for a long time. How is he always right?" Izuku ran out of money. He was at the corner grocery store, buying his last cup of instant noodles. He had just about enough money, and the change was so little so he was going to leave it as tip gladly. It was like a goodbye gift of some sort. The nice weather this morning gave a good feeling. Mr. Rigoku, the owner of the shop, was very kind, and Izuku felt sorry for not being able to support him and buy there anymore. "You sure do love these noodles, youngling. Are you aware these are not healthy for such growing man like yourself?" He slated him. "I know, Mr. Rigoku," he smiled from under his mask. After throwing the few coins to the tip, he headed to the exit, waving goodbye. Except then he saw someone trying to sneak away without paying. "Excuse me, sir, when you take food you need to pay. This is just how bartering works." He came to stop him, when the guy pulled a gun out of his skin. Of course he was prepared. Maybe his quirk let him have storage in his body. Izuku wondered how it worked. "Everyone! On the ground!" He yelled and loaded a bullet. This day was just getting better. A few screams could be heard. The guy's hand was shaking. He was clearly new to holding a weapon. A few people outside were already calling the police, or floundering what to do. The armed robber looked like he was having doubts with himself whether to shoot or run away. That, Izuku thought, could result in neither property damage nor someone getting hurt in or outside the shop. Both options are bad. The best thing to do was to neutralize the guy. And fast. The man slowly backed away. He was going to escape. Izuku's body moved on its own, and he jumped on the man, reaching his grasp to the gun. The man was tackled and the gun flew out of his hold, so Izuku pushed it away from him quickly. The cops just entered and cuffed the man, allowing Izuku to get back up again and check on the people. "Mr. Rigoku, Are all right? He went to help him up from the floor. That was some tackle right there, youngling. He smiled at him. Izuku rubbed the back of his head in embarrassment. I'm always happy to help, sir. He started leaving while making sure his noodles cup is still on him, but when he got it out of his bag it was a bit squished. Oh youngling, let me replace that for ya, the kind man offered. It's really fine, Mr. Rigoku. He tried to assure him. Then at least take something else, it's the least I can do to thank you. Izuku couldn't bargain, so he swooped a small packet of Doritos and broke off. Now all he had to do was survive over a cheap pack of Doritos. Eraserhead was grading some papers when the Hero Network pinged with an alert of a villain attack at a corner store in his area. It wasn't his shift, so he opened the news to see that the criminal was neutralized by a kid wearing a mask. A later interview with the shop owner showed that the kid was just another regular customer and a very kind and helpful young man. Aizawa would recognize that behavior from over miles. You guessed it. He went to talk to the store owner. He opened his phone. After 3 rings the call got picked up. Detective Tsukaushi speaking. What can I do for you? Oh good, it's Eraserhead. Meet me at the corner store that got attacked a few hours ago. You might get a lead on the kid. I'm on my way. The phone made the sound signaling that the call has ended. The papers can wait. He might have someone who knows the kid personally and can give him a name at best, or spatial scar at worst. Naomasa met him inside. Having a police car gets advantages on the road. They headed towards the counter. Hello sir, how are you today? My name is Detective Tsukaushi, and this is Pro Hero Eraserhead. We're here to ask you a couple of questions about the kid from the incident earlier. Also, I must declare that my quirk lie detector makes me know if you tell the truth or lie. He started. The man nodded along. Is it because he attacked the guy? Because he didn't. He only did this because he saw a dangerous situation and was doing this out of self-protection. Well, more others' protection. He went defensive. No, let's start at the easy stuff. Your name is Rigoku Yashido, correct? Yes. True. Do you know the kid's name? No. True. Then how do you know him? Silence. Mr. Rigoku, we aren't going to put him in jail. Tsukaushi promised him. That's correct. Apparently this kid had been walking around the streets at night for a couple years, trying to help people. Like a hero, but illegally. We call it a vigilante. We just hope to get him back on track for a normal life, perhaps even help him become a hero. Eraserhead explained as much as he could. Well, that's relieving, but I still don't know his name. I wasn't lying before. Rigoku continued. We know, said Tsukaushi. But is there anything else you know about him? Hair color, special scar, quirk, something weird he talks about, a family, anything? He thought for a moment. I believe I saw a few green hairs falling on his face once. If that helps, he keeps coming to me to buy these cheap noodle cups, or water, and some of the times leaves a tip. Oh, that youngling has a heart of gold. He sighed. The detective and the pro nodded. Thank you so much, Mr. Rigoku. You have been true help. He smiled. Come again soon. The door opened with a small bell and shut after them. Eraserhead was patrolling almost 2 weeks later when he felt his phone buzz in his pocket. Hello. Eraser? It's Detective Tsukaushi. I suggest you start heading to the station. We got the DNA autopsy back. You might want to take a look at it. The DNA test? Does that mean that they had the kid's identity? All right, I'm on my way. He rushed to the police station and met with the detective standing outside his office waiting for him with a file. That took long enough. True, but it makes sense since most of the DNA belongs to Mr. Akamoru's son, so it took a while to find the second DNA sample. Aizawa grabbed the file and opened it. Name, Midoriya Izuku. Age, 14. Birthday, July 15th. Address, XXXXXXXXX, unupdated. Quirk, none. Quirkless. Finally. We sent a few officers to the address written here, but the house was sold a few years ago. Tsukaushi noted. Eraserhead nodded. Most of the information was shocking on its own. You try to find his guardians. I'll talk to him when I see him on my patrol. I will also be bringing this to Principal Nizu, see maybe he can offer him a place at UA. He left. Socializing was not his best part. Hunger crawled up Izuku's body. He hasn't eaten in a week and a half, and his last meal wasn't a really full one. We all know it was a small pack of Doritos. By an article he read online, humans are able to survive 3 weeks without food. Every day right now he was looking for a job, even a part-time one. But people won't hire a 14-year-old kid, or 15. He tried rounding it up, but they didn't believe him. He was ignoring a small tummy ache as he left another criminal to the police when he spotted Eraserhead heading his way. He climbed up one of the roofs to meet him. He could really use a distraction now. "What's up, Eraserhead?" He just stared back at him, like he had something to say, but was thinking if he should, or how. He sighed and went for it. "Kid, listen, I'm gonna say something, but I need you to not run away. And don't worry, we won't arrest you." "Not worrying at all." Izuku attempted to lighten up the mood. Aizawa raised an eyebrow. "Sorry, I'll try. You're stressing me out." "Good." Somi and Detective Tsukaushi went to visit a few people you saved to try and get some info on you. Perhaps you remember an orange-haired family? Mr. Akamoru and his son. He completed. The pro looked a bit surprised. "Yeah. Apparently the boy really looks up to you, so he kept the band-aid you gave him." Izuku's eyes widened. What he felt was pure joy, that someone believes in him and admires him. "Shortly we got lucky. There was a DNA of yours on that band-aid. Maybe now can you tell me a bit about yourself, Midoriya Izuku?" He was caught off guard. He got caught. He was also panicking for a bit no reason. He was specifically told he wasn't going to jail. He took a deep breath. That was predictable. Nice move, Aizawa. Name for name, queen for queen. Eraserhead didn't look bothered by the kid calling him by his name, because he already knew. He pulled out a notebook and shoved it into Izuku's hands. "You forgot this. Present Mike and I were really impressed by your work. I wanted to show it to Nizu too, but Mike said we needed your permission first." "Nizu as in principal of UA? No way. This is just me noting stuff down so I won't forget it. It's not really anything special. Besides, if you already know who I am, you probably know that I'm quirkless. So, he will hate me the moment he hears that." He was frustrated. "But I don't hate you right now," Eraserhead pointed out. Izuku was stumped, stunned and surprised. This was the first time someone who knew looked at him beyond his quirklessness. Felt good. It was also strong to believe. Why? Aizawa was desperate to show the kid that he can be a hero, and Mort, he is an equal human being just like the rest. You are strong and smart, and you use that to help people. That's what a true hero does. Except that if you give me permission to show your analysis to Nizu, we can find a way to make it legal. He sounded confident in his words. You still didn't answer my question. Why don't you hate me? I'm quirkless? He pressed with disbelief. Because it doesn't matter to me. Even if you had a super strong quirk, I would have done the same. Got it, problem child? Izuku nodded. Yes. And call me Izuku? Suddenly he felt dizziness take over and he swayed a little. Eraserhead caught it and ran to help him stabilize. Are you okay? He checked him quickly for injuries or any signs of sickness, and pressed his finger to see how long it takes for the BLD to come back. Let's just say, it took long enough. Kid, you're extremely dehydrated, he said and took out a bottle of water. Oh no, it's fine, Razorhead. It's not the water, it's just the food. He tried to get him off his back, but his own claim went against him. No. What? That's worse. When was the last time you ate? Aizawa attacked him. Izuku fiddled with his fingers, counting the days. About a week? A week? No, wait, a week and a half? A week and a half? Izuku nodded, clueless about the worry spreading in the hero's heart. His vision darkened around the edges, and he felt like he was about to be sick, except he had nothing to throw up. Izuku, just focus on me for now, okay? The words started swirling, and his stomach hurt like a ride to hell and back. He passed out. Izuku woke up. He looked around the white room, and the first thing that caught his eye is an obnoxious yellow sleeping bag. He was laying in a hospital bed, with weird tubes connected to him and stuff. His eyes got used to the room very quickly. He looked around. It was mostly empty, with a soft morning light straining through the windows. How are you doing, problem child? A voice peeked from the sleeping bag. Eraserhead? Yeah, kid, you really scared me back there. A nurse entered the room and checked on him. How do you feel, Izuku? She asked with a soft grin. Fine. Been better. He smiled back. Honestly, he felt like his stomach got ran over by a truck, and he was still slightly lightheaded. He spotted his personal file on the nightstand and picked it up. He skimmed through the words until he found what he was looking for. They also didn't know where his dad was. He stared at the paper. What was going to happen? Your father actually signed a contract releasing you off his care. You don't have an official guardian. Even if he wouldn't have done that, we would try to get you away from him. The guy escaped jail after murdering your mom. Aizawa said. Oh, yeah. There was a bit of silence as the nurse walked out. Anyways, Eraserhead got up. I should get going, and you're supposed to try to eat something. I'll come back later with Detective Tsukaushi to ask you some questions. He held the yellow puffy sleeping bag and headed to the door. And thank you, Izuku said. What for? Everything. Nizu poured himself a cup of tea when he heard a knock on his office door. Come in. Eraserhead opened the door and stepped inside. Aizawa. For what do I have the honor? You usually don't come here unless it's serious. He smiled and lifted one paw. Remember the vigilante I told you about that I want to get into UA? I brought you a piece of his work. He passed a notebook to Nizu, and he started reading it. Interesting. Have you tried to give him an IQ test of sort? He asked with an evil grin. No, we thought you might want to do it. Eraserhead answered tiredly. He's currently at the hospital, so if you want to talk to him, you know where to find me. Have a good day. He got up, took the notebook from across the table, and left Nizu to his mischievous ideas. Hey, I got you your notebook back. Aizawa opened the door to Izuku's room. Thanks. He heard the kid say, but his voice sounded a bit muffled. He wondered why, and when he looked down at the bed, he found him under the thin blanket, curled on himself and hugging his belly. What's up? Eraserhead wasn't the most amazing person with kids, but he was trying his best. Izuku pulled down the covers to reveal his freckled face. I'm okay. You sure? He could swear the kid's face got paler. He got lost in thoughts for a few seconds. Tears sparkled in his eyes, but haven't trickled down yet. It's just a tummy ache. The nice nurse said it will go away. He mumbled. Eraserhead crouched in front of his bed. I don't doubt it, but what are you truly thinking of right now? He asked. Izuku looked him in the eyes. I can't go to the foster care system. I'm quirkless. Everyone will just eat me up alive unless I end up dead. He started to panic, and he felt like he needed more air, so he breathed faster, but every inhale hurt his tummy, and it hurt, it's painful, and everything was fuzzy and cold and distant. But then it stopped. The weight of a warm hand rested on his shoulder. Don't worry, Izuku, it's going to be okay. We have a plan. He took a deep breath. And out. He was so tired. But he thought, who's we? He ended up only saying the second half of the sentence aloud, but Aizawa seemed to understand. Just then, the door opened without a knock. Hello. Midoriya Izuku. It's Minizu. The principal of UA. Izuku cut him. I'm sorry. I got excited. It's fairly probable and completely fine. How are you? He spread his paws up. Aizawa could swear he was just waiting outside for the right timings. Nizu is here to tell you something, right? He sent the rat in question a glare that could cause a chill run up anyone else's spine. Yes. We came here to offer you a spot in UA's hero course. Since you are underage, and you didn't use a quirk on your vigilantism, it can count as self-defense. So I pulled some strings, and now your time in school can legally be your vigilante rehab program. What? I can't do that. You said it yourself, I'm quirkless. I can't be a hero. And I don't have a parent to pay for it or dash. He was stressed, so he was rambling, but none of the other two in the room looked worried about the same things. Kid, you already are a hero. Eraserhead moved his hand to ruffle his hair. What are you talking about? Izuku looked confused, and suddenly his stomach wasn't causing so much pain. He used that opportunity to try and eat a bit of vegetables from the food tray he got. Izuku, you save people. That's why you went outside all those nights and trained. All we're asking is for you to do it legally. Was Eraserhead serious? If he brought Nizu, it must mean they somehow found a way to bypass the need of a guardian? Then can I take the entrance exam? Why? Aizawa asked curiously. So I won't be different from anyone else. Izuku said, but Eraserhead felt like it wasn't the full truth. Makes sense, we can put you in the recommendation exam too if you want, but I still don't see the point. Nizu exclaimed, seeing the same thing and trying to find what it was. I want to know that I got this place because I worked strong just like everyone else. The kid truly didn't believe he deserves this. If I won't pass, then I'll know I need to work harder. He added. Aizawa sighed. Fine. It's in a bit less than a month. If there's anything else you need to know, I'll tell you. Also, it's another reason to make sure you know all the study material. Thank you. Izuku finished his food slowly, and his bellyache weakened. There was silence when a different nurse came in to check Izuku and replace his infusion. It's like a constant needle in your vein, so the doctors won't have to stab you every single time. Sometimes they connect to a bag of liquids so the body stays hydrated, so that's what he has. He thanked her, and she left. Nizu grinned. One last thing. Since you already know, and as you've mentioned you don't have a parent or a guardian, therefore you will be staying at the UA dorms. You will be under the supervision of the pro heroes. One of them has volunteered to take you under their custody with an emergency foster license. Izuku was in shock. He hugged his knees tight. Are you sure about it? I don't want you going through all that trouble just for me. Of course. I am honored to help you become a hero. Izuku moved to sit up on his bed, and sat on his heels and bowed. Thank you so much, he said. As he got up, there was another knock on the door, and it opened. Detective Tsukaushi, come in. Aizawa sighed. Nizu got up to leave. I guess that will be all about me for today. See you later, Midoriya-kun. He waved his paw and left. The detective took his place. How are you, kiddo? I'm Tsukaushi Naomasa, and I am the detective assigned to your case. I'm here to ask you a few questions about your life and the last few years. Sounds about right? Izuku nodded. Good. I'm also committed to tell you I have a lie detector quirk, so I can tell if you lie or tell the truth. Now let's begin. Where did you live the past few years? A roof no one came up to on XXXXXXXXX. My stuff are still there. He remembered. Don't worry, we'll send someone to get it. Why did you end up on the streets? Izuku consulted with himself, but figured he had no way of getting lower than he already is, so he might as well tell the truth. My mom died, and there's no way I could stay with my dad. He would just beat me up every day. Especially without school. And how did you get food and resources? I found a small job at the library, but it got shut down, so I ran out of money. That's why I ended up here. In total, it was 20 minutes of answering questions about his life, just so they could get a picture of what he has been through. Alright, that will be all for today. Thank you so much for your time, Midoriya-kun. Your stuff will be brought tomorrow, he said and stretched out. Okay, thank you very much. He left with Eraserhead, since they both have work to do. Izuku was left to chat with the nurses, that gave him some papers and a pencil. He wrote down a few thoughts on some Limelight heroes, and scribbled something for fun, but let's say he is no artist. But he finally got to eat normal food. If hospital food can count as normal. Still better than cold water instant noodles. Across the hall he could hear one of the patients got a surprise visit. He was happy for them, but he was sad because he missed his mom. He never really had any friends except for Kachin, but that changed too. He felt lonely. He went on walks and after a few days on runs too. He ran as fast as he could to escape his worries. Outside he found another kid that stayed there, and he taught Izuku soccer. So they played until it got dark. When he returned, he looked through his notebook. His analysis wasn't really special. He couldn't see what Nizu and Eraserhead saw about him. He was just a quirkless kid. So he continued to practice for the entrance exam. He wasn't going to be left behind. But of course the entrance exam wasn't all about power. It had the educational part. Izuku borrowed a few books from the hospital's small library and looked at what was listed on his grade. He flipped the pages until he got to the right material. He stared at the questions. This was too easy. Is it possible that the study he did in the library finally paid off? So he gave himself a break and went to sleep. It was the day. The UA entrance exam day. He came early alongside Aizawa and went to the waiting area. He was nervous, but he didn't know why. This test isn't about whether he gets into UA or not. It was about proving himself. He put his hands in the hoodie Aizawa got him, to replace the old, ripped one. It was dark green colored and a bit big on him, but he really liked it. Slowly more and more students joined, and suddenly they all entered the main auditorium. Are y'all ready? It was Present Mike. Man, Izuku could go on rambling on him all day. His pros and cons, his quirk, and best moves. But he had to pay attention. He needed to. You will have to destroy as many robots as you can. There are 4 types of robots, each with different points changing from 1 to 3. The presentation behind him showed only 3 out of the 4. Excuse me, but there are 4 robots and you only mentioned 3. If this is a mistake, then it is very disrespectful and a shame to UA. A boy with blue hair and glasses spoke up. That's right, listener. The 4th type is a 0-pointer. I suggest you try to avoid it if you can. Present Mike avoided the tense formality of the kid. But first, you have a written exam. Split up to your pre-decided rooms, he yelled. Izuku went to his assigned desk, and the test paper was put in front of each student. The teacher in charge was Cementos. You may begin the test. Izuku opened the first page. He filled everything out quickly and detailed his explanations as much as he could. His palm felt sweaty under his grip on the borrowed pen. He was writing and monig page after page, until when he flipped the next paper over he saw. The end, good luck. Wait, did he miss a few questions? He went back and checked. Every white piece of paper was filled with his messy handwriting. He waited in his seat, going through his answers quietly. 15 minutes after Cementos called for everyone to drop the pens and pencils, and the tests were passed forward. Next you have the practical exam, so go to your assigned areas. There are different training grounds in the facility, and there are signs to guide you, he said. Izuku was told he was supposed to look for ground beta. He stared at the huge buildings of the school. Was he truly going to learn here? Live here? Then he didn't look at where he was going, and tripped on something. Maybe I won't, he thought. Then he just stopped falling. Are you okay? Sorry for using my quirk on you. A girl with brown hair stood beside him. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just really clumsy. Your quirk is so cool. He was still floating. She released him. Well, I guess good luck. She encouraged him. Thanks, good luck to you too. He tried. She got swallowed among the other kids near the enormous gate. Present Mike was yelling at them to go, and there is no countdown in real life, but Izuku was too busy trying to understand what he can do against monstrous robots. He ran in with everyone. He entered into a fake city, destruction everywhere, and robots all over the place. He ran to one of them, only to see it get demolished before he got to it. Sorry man, I got it first. A kid passed him, running to get more. Izuku ran another direction, getting to a 3-pointer. Without too much thinking, he jumped on one of his legs and climbed up. He can scold himself later for whatever CRP he is going to do. He ripped open the control panel and tore apart the wires. The robot shut down and dropped dead. He got points. But it took him too long, he will never have time to get enough. So he ran and searched for another 3-pointer, but no use. The last ones are getting destroyed at the moment. So he ran to a 2-pointer and used the same way to get it down. He had 3 minutes left. He moved around, looking for bots to take down, but all he finds is metal ruins and smoking leftovers. A minute left was announced, and a shake went through the ground. The 0-pointer came out. It was gigantic. What was he thinking? Gigantic is not a word. Like a tank, but 20 times larger. It was crushing everything on its way, and it gave Izuku chills. Everyone ran away, just like Mike advised. He started too. No point staying if there are no points? Help. He turned around. The nice girl from earlier was there, her foot stuck under a wreck of cement. Someone help please? Zero thinking made, he ran towards her, grabbing a big rusty iron rod on his way. He pushed it in the robot's wheels, and scrambled to help take off the concrete chunk off the girl. She got up carefully, when the robot made a strange noise, and sparks flew as it stopped moving. She started to back off a bit. Izuku followed slowly as well. We should get away. It can still short-circuit an EXP dash. Azets. The boom. He couldn't finish the sentence. He sent a hand to reach the girl when he found himself flat out on the floor. The explosion he expected. He saw it coming. That was time. He was such a failure. Izuku was going to need to work a lot harder now, just to prove he is worth it. That he deserves the praise. Not living in the streets really put his guard down. Izuku got up. Parts of the robot were all over the place. I wasted all my time, I need to work harder. I only got 5 points, he mumbled to himself. He went to the girl. Are you alright? She looked nauseous, but overall okay. Yeah. I'm fine. She smiled at him. Recovery girl headed their way, giving embraces and gummy candy to everyone. You are all reckless young people. Not thinking anymore. She was indignant. She embraced him, and then the nice girl and gave them both candy. Everyone started leaving home, chatting with excitement. But Izuku felt devastated. He couldn't believe that after all he's been through, he still needs to do better. Maybe everyone were right. Quirkless people can't be heroes. He was just living in the illusion that he mattered. He returned to his new dorm room and curled into a ball against his wall. He should have just stayed at the streets. Escape from Eraserhead and starve to his death. He slammed his head back. Something dropped with a metallic clang sound. His room was empty, with a bed, a small desk for studying, and a pile of stuff from his time on the streets he has yet to unpack. He turned to face his bag when he saw something glowing at him. He shoved his things under the bed when he saw it. Dropped to the floor. The license plate. The same one from 2 years ago, when he saved the Akamoru family. Its soft gleam shining with memories. The people who brought him his personal belongings from the roof must have recognized it, and took it with them. He picked it up. A bit dusty and rusty. It reminded him of that bit of joy, filling him in. Overflowing, and leaking from his eyes in the form of light drops of water. Suddenly the happiness turned into frustration, and that turns into anxiety, which splits up to stress and fear, with a pinch of disappointment. Who was he kidding? A lot of disappointment. Someone knocked on his door. A small breeze refreshing the air as Aizawa walked in. It was already getting dark outside. Just how long was he sitting there? He placed the license plate on the cold floor and looked up. Why did you bring it too? He asked. He should have asked and a long time ago, but he was too busy ignoring the fact that he wasn't alone anymore. The plate? Eraserhead jerked his head to point at the aluminum board. The officers thought you would want it, that you kept it like souvenir or something. He scanned Izuku, and noticed traces of tear burns in the corners of his eyes. You okay there, problem child? Why are you asking this now? He investigated and sat in front of him. Izuku's gaze moved to his hands, that seemed more interesting than facing the world. I failed and I shouldn't be here and dash. Oh. Slow down kid, breath. He put his hand on Izuku's shoulder, and the boy flinched a bit. Shoyuta felt his body rise and fall with every inhale and exhale. Good. Now, one thing at a time. You didn't fail. Izuku's head shot up. What? Are you certain? I only got like 5 points. It's nothing. He stared at the pro hero, shock holding him from mumbling forever. Yeah, you really believed UA will have such simple test? He smiled under his capture scarf. Izuku's brain stopped working. I can't tell you any more than what I already told you, but as for the second thing, you really need to be here. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, got that? He found himself lost in emerald green eyes, covered by forest viridian curled hair. Now go take a shower, you still smell like a campfire, he said as Izuku's grin widened. The next morning Izuku was working out at one of the school's gyms. Need to get better. Need to get stronger. Need to get more accurate. Need to get faster. He groped to the odd-looking floor, huffing. But he can't give up. He has to extend his limits. So he planted his palms in the rubbery ground and pushed his body up and down, still not touching the floor. Push-ups are strong, and that's why they are important. His elbows were already spread out on his sides to ease on him, but he still struggled to lift himself back. His hands shook, can't support his weight any longer. He crashed on his ST and knees, and rested his head as well. He was trying to avoid thinking about the test, but no use. The only reason he fell asleep last night was exhaustion, both from the exam and recovery girl's quirk. But that didn't stop his mind from displaying the usual nightmares, of course. So the moment the clock showed 5:30 a.m., he snuck outside to the gym. It started out as simple laps, but got more intense over time. Usually when he got sad over something or frustrated, his mom would make him katsudon to cheer him up. But now she isn't here, and this is his only escape. His stomach growled and got him out of his head. He realized he forgot to eat since the gummy bears yesterday. Aizawa was trying to get him eat 3 meals every day, even though he almost couldn't. But that doesn't prevent him from getting hungry. After he finished catching his breath, he checked the time. 9:30 in the morning. He was seriously training for 4 hours. So he went to take a shower and change his clothes, and stepped outside, trying to remember where is the dining hall again. So he had breakfast, alone. Some of the staff were on campus, but had their own dining room. Of course they knew he was there, since some of them came to tell him hi. Like Midnight and Present Mike. Hey little listener. You are Izuku, right? Shoyuta told me about how smart you are. Mike complimented him, and the two sat in front of him, on his favorite table. Thanks. But I'm not that smart, really. I just had a lot of time and a library. No big deal. He said, and made a mental note to write in his notebook that Eraserhead's first name is Shoyuta. Don't sell yourself short, kiddo. Midnight waved her fork around the air. If Shoyuta says you're smart, it must be something. He whispered a weak, thank you, and continued eating in silence. Nizu went over some of the new first year's test results. They were all very fascinating, but when he checked out Midoriya Izuku's written exam, he couldn't be more proud that he was letting the kid stay at his school. He has a massive amount of knowledge and amazing analytical skills that can be used very well in the hero industry. He just wished that society could accept quirkless people as one of their own. A small knock on his dude filled the silent rustling of the paper. Come in. The green-haired boy entered shakily. You wanted to see me, Principal Nizu? Yes. I wanted to give you back your test results. He slid a piece of paper on his desk, and Izuku picked it up and sat down in front of him. Educational part, 99 out of 100 points. Practical part, VP 5/64 HP 59/64 OA 64 points. He had to admit it looked like gibberish. What does the VP and HP mean? He got curious. Nizu smiled. Great question. It's a short for villain points and hero points. Izuku looked confused. But then he did the math. If he got 5 points in the test, then the villain points must be robot score, but what were supposed to be the hero points? Maybe what a hero is made to do. Save people? Rescue someone or something? But there wasn't any. Then it hit him. The nice girl. It's hell points. The villain points are points from the robots, and the hero points are from helping and saving people. Nizu looked pleased. Indeed, Midoriya-kun. Well done. The same nice girl actually came later and wanted to give you some points, because she heard you only got 5. Also, I wanted to use this opportunity to ask if you need anything else for school? Izuku already got his uniform and stationery stuff. No, thank you, sir. If that's it, then I guess I'll see you around. Enjoy the first day of school, Nizu said. Izuku got up and started walking back to his dorm room. School really starts in a few days? He wasn't ready at all. He spent these days training and studying just to keep suppressing the worries that come with going back to school. He also had time to unpack his bag, and now his room looks extra empty, with everything organized in a closet. But now the first day of school finally came. He was walking with absolute zero confidence to his class. Aizawa already told him that he will be his teacher, so he had nothing to worry about, right? But still, something felt awfully wrong. When he got to the door, he saw the same brown hair from the entrance exam. Oh, it's you. I didn't get to thank you for what happened in the exam. I'm Uraraka Ochako. You were so cool. Like you totally knew what you were doing. She moved her finger up and down with enthusiasm. Thanks. But it really was nothing. If anything, I should thank you for offering me points. You really didn't have to, he said with a smile. They both got inside, but Izuku froze in his place the moment he heard it. Two familiar voices arguing. One was the same strict blue-haired boy from the exam. He waved his arm up and down at the other, scolding him for putting his legs on the table. The other one, the blonde head turned at him the moment he froze in his place. His only childhood friend or bully or both. Kachin, aka Bakugo Katsuki. Deku? H-hei, Kachin. Izuku was ashamed. He should have seen it coming. Bakugo always bragged about going to UA, and he knew he was going to make it. Where the F were you all this time, huh? He yelled, face full of terror combined with surprise. He walked to him, stopping right in front of him. I tried to draw his expression in the pic above. What do you mean? Izuku backed off. You know what I'm talking about. You disappearing one day, and not showing up to school ever after. His palms sparkled with the familiar sound of caramel-scented explosions. It made Izuku flinch and unconsciously shrink himself. Now tell me, where were you, and how the hell did you get in here? He growled. Izuku scanned his surrounding, nervous like a cornered animal. At the edge of his sight he spotted Eraserhead's yellow sleeping bag. We'll talk later, he whispered to Katsuki and went past him, dropping to his seat. Said boy frowned and stomped to his desk behind Izuku. A few seconds later the entire class went silent. It took you all too long to notice me. The pro hero got up. I'm Aizawa Shoyuda, your homeroom teacher this year. Now go get changed and we'll meet outside for a quirk assessment test. Izuku felt nauseous, and for the first time in a while he had something inside of him to throw up. He was quirkless. How on earth was he supposed to assess the quirk that he doesn't have? The workout uniform showed a bit of his scars from the bullying and street fights. He could feel stares shooting at him like bullets, and shamefully disappearing fast. He tried his best to ignore them, and the scary aura Katsuki gave off, giving his all in concentration on the lesson. You will try your hardest in these tests. Bakugo, you scored the most in the entrance exam. What was your ball throw score in middle school? Eraserhead turned towards the blonde. 67 meters, he grunted. Izuku can see it. He remembers him always being the best in everything, so he wasn't surprised. Okay then, now try your best with your quirk. He gave him the ball. Bakugo threw the ball with a war call of die. Aizawa showed everyone the device that counts the distance. 753 meters. Now everyone else do the same for the rest of your tests. Whoever gets the lowest ranking will be expelled. Welcome to UA. He concluded, and Izuku spotted a small look on his face. A smartass look, like he isn't telling them something. What was that supposed to mean? Is the test something more than it's presented? Is he not going to expel anyone? Because that would be calming since he has no quirk to help him in these tests. Worried and determined faces were scattered all over as the students got to work. It went quite well, and no one questioned why he wasn't using a quirk. Maybe they thought he had a mental quirk. That's what he thought the purple-haired kid had at least, so it only makes sense. What made Izuku confirm his theories was that he made the blue-haired dude push him too at the running test. Perhaps some type of brainwashing quirk? Much more to explore and analyze for him. Luckily, he got stronger over his time on the streets. So when Aizawa showed everyone the scoreboard, he was happy to see that he wasn't last. After him on the ranks was the name, Hagakure Toru, the girl with the invisibility quirk. It can't physically affect her or her environment, therefore her scores were lower than him. She will need to work on it harder. What was even more surprising was that he almost got a tie with the next one. The purple-haired kid Shinso Hitoshi, who got to where he is thanks to his brainwashed classmates, and only of the tasks that were with other students. On the first place was, of course, Katsuki. He must have released all his anger of Izuku ghosting him on this. He should be happy standing in the first place with no one surpassing him. And yet, a sour expression was clinging tightly on his face. Aizawa gave everyone a moment to take in the results. They were all sure that if Hagakure was visible, she would look like she is on the edge of crying. No one is actually getting expelled. It was just a logical ruse to make you all try your best. Eraserhead said with a smirk. So many ounces of relief were released to the air. The rest of the day went quickly. Uraraka showed Izuku to Ida Tenya, who was the next day in the homeroom lesson chosen to be class president. Izuku believes it was a smart choice. He is responsible and confident in his own actions. Aizawa every once in a while sent him or Bakugo a glare. He must have noticed there was something between the two of his students. It wasn't strong to miss. They also kept glancing at each other. The blonde was always walking with a nice red-haired kid called Kirishima Ijiro and his friends. Izuku had a small talk with him already, and found out he enjoys talking about heroes with him, and hear his analysis. He really thought it was interesting, but he was too scared to walk back to him, since he was too close to Bakugo. Izuku didn't want to take the risk, but it was unavoidable and he knew it. He also owed this explanation to him, so he can't let himself escape from it. Not again. On the last break of the second day of school, Katsuki walked up to him. "We need to talk." Bakugo led Izuku to an empty classroom and closed the door. "I want answers. Stop avoiding me." Izuku couldn't take apart the look on his face. He started fidgeting nervously with his fingers, suching weight from leg to leg. He did tell him he will talk to him later, but he didn't say when. Smartassic, he hoped to reschedule it for a long time from now. But of course life were never the way he wished for. "I know. What do you want to hear?" Izuku sat down on one of the chairs. "The truth," Katsuki stated, and leaned on one of the close desks. "I want to know what happened when you were gone, and how did you get here?" The green-haired had an internal debate about what to say, and what not to. "Fine, I guess. When my mom died, my dad kind of kicked me out. He wasn't the best, so it wasn't really a problem. But he also stopped paying for school, so..." Izuku let out a shaky smile. Bakugo was furious. Why didn't he say anything? But he didn't want to push him, so he, against half of his will, remained silent. Izuku was stressed. Telling about his life to his ex-bully and friend felt awkward and not in a good way. "So I lived on the streets for a few years. I figured there's no way to get lower, so I started walking around at night to help people. Apparently most heroes don't take patrols at night, so the crime rate is a lot higher," he said warily. "That's shitty," Bakugo commented. "Yeah. Shortly I ran into Eraserhead, and when I ended up in the hospital, he and the detective assigned to my case found a temporary solution here in UA," he concluded. A strange noise came from the ventilation system and cut the tension in the room. The two ignored it. "So," Katsuki started. "What now?" He looked at Izuku in the eyes. "Well, don't get it wrong, I took the entrance exam. Aizawa even offered me to take the recommendation exam. But I wanted to prove myself." Izuku turned his head to the vent, the weird sounds fading into the background until disappearing. Quiet filled the room like fog. "It's all my fault, Bakugo lowered his gaze to his hands. "What? No, it's not just y-. But it's also me, right? I couldn't stop them. Don't lie to me, Deku." Izuku flinched back from the loud response. Katsuki was taken aback by his own actions. "Sorry." The dim sounds of students running to get lunch with their friends crossed the embarrassment. They were both clueless how to continue, and all Izuku wanted to do was run away and act like nothing happened, but Katsuki had more to say, and Izuku had respect for him, for trying to improve. "It's fine." He smiled. "Aizawa said I passed? I don't really know how. Anyways, we should probably go eat something and return to classes, right?" He got up and put the chair back in its place tidily. "We have time. Also, why wouldn't you pass?" Bakugo's face expression was completely serious. He waited all these years regretting his behavior, feeling remorse of all the things he did to Izuku because he was gone, and didn't get the chance to make it up to him. But now, he was standing right before him. The same kid he used to be friends with, before he effed everything up. "Because I'm quirkless, remember?" Izuku's eyes suddenly became dull and sad. This was just proving him right. "Deku, all that shit we said, you know that's not true, right? We were wrong, it's because of me that the extras kicked your butt and teased you every day. After all, it's me they were following, so I should have stopped them. But I was too much of a coward." Katsuki shrunk slightly in his place. He found it relieving to say, "Wait, you said you ended up in the hospital. But let me guess, you did another stupid thing as always?" The mood was immediately lightened up, and they both laughed. "Maybe. But I just ran out of food and passed out, so. Yeah, you can say I did something stupid." Bakugo looked half amused and half horrified. "Nothing's new. Come on, let's go eat with the extras so you won't starve again." "Kachin, that's rude. Don't call them extras, they are your friends." Izuku noted as they headed for the door. "Yeah, whatever." Katsuki scoffed. They got to the dining hall and sat down next to a large group of their classmates, among them Kirishima, Ashido, Kaminari, Tsuyo, Uraraka, Ida, and more. Izuku could finally run a normal conversation with Ijiro without freaking out about Bakugo showing up and killing him. They talked about Red Riot and his pros and cons and weaknesses. Izuku was never this happy in his entire life. He also had the chance to ask his friends for details of their quirks. "Deku, you're mumbling." "Oh, sorry Kachin." He was too excited to have friends that he decided to leave his urge to know more of their powers and focus on lunch instead. "Hey, Midoriya, what's your favorite hero?" Kirishima asked curiously. From all the talks about heroes it made complete sense. "Probably still All Might, right nerd?" Bakugo teased. Izuku thought for a few moments. "Actually, I'm not sure anymore. Don't get me wrong, I still think All Might is cool. I just think that there are a lot more underrated heroes who are better," he ended up saying. "That's true." Kirishima nodded. "Anyways, I heard a new teacher is arriving. Who do you think it's going to be?" Soon enough the conversation split up into multiple ones at the same time. Izuku had never felt like he belonged, but this was just starting to make him feel like it. Almost feeling like he got the friends he never had. He was going to do everything to keep them, even if it means hiding the fact that he has no quirk. "I heard he was recommended by a pro hero, and still took the normal exam. Like, he wants to take our places that bad? He must have like a super powerful quirk. Someone told me that he's like a teacher's pet. That's so arrogant. Why does he deserve a place in the hero course more than us? He's so lucky. I would have died to be him. He shouldn't be here. He shouldn't be here, and he knows it. He doesn't need the world to remind him that every day, but the whispering in the wind could be heard every corner." Someone heard a part of his conversations with Bakugo the day before. Quirk, or just crawling in the vents, the whispers were here. More like rumors and untrue ones. But Izuku didn't have the courage to correct them. It will cause more unnecessary waves, and then the entire school will find out that he's quirkless. He can't handle it right now. He has got real friends that want to be around him despite everything, even if they don't know that he is quirkless yet. He can't afford to lose them. The next day it became insufferable. He was just going to the bathroom at lunch break when he heard a chat between two kids that walked in. "Told me he's a true show-off. Are you sure it's him? He just looks so nice and friendly around people. Yeah, they said he's just pretending or something. At least some people understand it doesn't line up." He quickly left and went to catch Bakugo on his way to lunch with some of their classmates. Izuku winced, trying to escape the looks being spared at him as the group walked off to find a place to sit, lunch trays in hand. From the corner of his eye he saw another one of his classmates, Shinso Hitoshi, sitting alone. He approached him carefully, not to scare him. "Hi Shinso. Wanna come sit with us?" He jerked his head towards the group chatting over the table, since his hands were taken. "No thanks. I'm not here to make friends." His gaze jumped from Izuku to the table and back. Said boy smiled at him. "It's okay, but eating with someone always tastes better. Maybe you will even make friends by accident and even enjoy being in their company," he suggested. Hitoshi stared at him with disbelief. "And why exactly would they be friends with me? Why wouldn't they? Everyone are very nice." Izuku cheered him softly, but no change. "Because I have a villain's quirk?" Shinso felt dread piling up inside of him. "What are you talking about? Your quirk is amazing and really good for hero work. You could brainwash people into cooperating and no one will get hurt. If I wasn't wrong making conclusions from the quirk assessment. If I am, then I'm so sorry. And how can it be a villainous quirk if you are already training to be a hero with it? It can't be bad unless someone bad is using it. Never mind, you're still invited to come eat with us. He finished nervously, turning to take his leave before he can make a fool of himself again. What about you? I mean, what's your quirk? He heard the purple-haired teen ask behind him, but tried to make it look like he never heard the question by swaying his arm from side to side, marking his friends where he is. He just can't deal with it today. Meanwhile, Shinso debated with himself over what the green-haired kid had told him. He also wasn't sure if Izuku couldn't hear his question for real, or he did hear it and his quirk is a sensitive subject like him. It made him confused, since he seemed so confident that Hitoshi's quirk wasn't villainous. Izuku was getting far when he heard steps after him. Wait. He reached the table and sat down, signaling the purple-haired boy to sit next to him. Hey guys. I brought Shinso to eat with us. He grinned. Hitoshi gave a little wave when everyone welcomed him kindly. It warmed his heart, so he swore to himself that this won't be the last time he will come and eat with his class. They all talked with each other with no hesitation, but he still had one question weighting him down. Izuku said he was going to check something for a moment and grab a drink, so Hitoshi used that opportunity. Hey, do you guys know Midoriya's quirk? I don't think I have seen him use it. No, but I heard someone say it's super powerful. Yeah, I don't know. Everybody was clueless. Bakugo just grunted quietly. But it wasn't an I don't FNG care grunt, it was an I heard this question too many FNG times grunt. He knew something but he won't tell us. The break ended too quickly to everyone's liking, but in the next class they were supposed to meet the new teacher. Everyone was buzzing with excitement, making theories about who is it going to be. Izuku hoped it will be someone good. Of course he didn't have one in mind, but he had ideas for who he wouldn't want to teach him. The Chem endeavor came. That he was about to turn in his seat to ask Bakugo who he think it will be when the door opened. Then the inevitable happened. I am here. It can't be. All Might? The entire class screamed. Well, except for Izuku and a few more shocked students. Yes. It's me. A teacher in you. He informed with such enthusiasm that could almost compete with present Mix 1. Class. Suit up with your hero costumes, and we will meet in the city wreck on Ground Alpha. All Might spared Izuku an undecisive look, like he was trying to remember something, like the green-haired kid was doing something wrong, and left quickly. Said boy moved out as in autopilot. He could swear All Might didn't remember him. Of course, why would he? After all, it's the #1 hero he's talking about. He must be meeting tons of people every day. Izuku felt emptiness. He isn't letting himself go back to that roof. Soon enough Izuku found himself paired up with Uraraka, the nice brunette girl from the exam. They got teamed together against Ida and Bakugo. The teams were drawn by notes, so when Izuku found he was against Katsuki he knew it was a bad idea. Because they grew up together, Izuku knew almost every weakness of the explosive teen. Of course Bakugo had the advantage of power, but he never saw how Izuku fought. I'm going to win, Deku. Speak of the devil. Bakugo and Ida went past them, about to enter the building. Izuku smiled nervously. I'll do my best. He held his palm in front and closed it to a fist. Deku? Uraraka said with an insurance tone in her voice. Isn't your name Izuku? Well yeah, but Kachin and I were childhood friends, at some point. So we have nicknames? I like it. She grinned. It sounds a lot like you can do it. Dikairu/Deku. Oh teach thanks. You can call me like that too if you want. He said. Sweet. Alright, we need to start on a strategy. Do you have any ideas? Actually yes. Your quirk works on a 5 points contact, right? Uraraka nodded enthusiastically. Come on, Izuku. It's your chance to show you can be here. He started mumbling his plan to Ochako while taking breaks to breath and hear what she thinks about it. Hold on, what about you? What will you be doing? She stopped him. Izuku tidied his sports uniform and tried to lower it on his sleeves. I'm going for Bakugo. I know almost everything about him. Is your quirk any good against his explosions? What is it actually? No one really knows. She added quietly in the end. I'm quirkless. Izuku stuttered, expecting the worst. Waiting for the last disgusted glance, the change of groups, for being left alone. And you got into the hero course? That's incredible. Her smile spread itself to the green boy as well. To his surprise, the tournament never came. He spent years avoiding people who treated him terrible just from the fact that he doesn't have a quirk. He was so shocked he forgot to answer back to Uraraka. Thanks. Though I'd really appreciate it if you don't go screaming it to everyone, because, you know. His voice turned into whisper with every word. Sure. Also, time is running out, let's finish up. She put on the helmet of her costume back. Izuku kind of felt bad he didn't have a hero costume, but he thought it was good practice for himself without any support gear. The two concluded the plan, and when the time ran out they stood prepared, waiting for the announcement to begin the fight. As soon as All Might set them off they ran in, splitting up. Izuku felt hesitant. Was Uraraka really going to help him lay low and hide his quirklessness? Sure, that wouldn't last long, but maybe she just didn't hear right? No, he had to concentrate. He had a plan to preform and accomplish. He stepped closer to the middle of the building when he heard loud stomping. That must be Bakugo, looking for them on the first floor. It didn't take long until he heard the comms in his ear crackle as the voice of Uraraka popped out. Deku-kun, I found the weapon. It's on the second floor, the most middle room. Ida-kun is here guarding it. Are you confident you can take on Bakugo? He is your childhood friend after all, and he has this super powerful quirk. She sounded a bit worried, but Izuku knew she trusted him, and he can't lose that. Yes, of course. Maybe we can even avoid any unnecessary fights if Ida won't alert him as backup. Just follow the plan. He heard Uraraka humming in improvement, and turned to the direction she went to so he could join her on the second level. He was a meter from the stairwell when Bakugo got in his way. Izuku froze. He was intimidated, he felt so small. Like he kept shrinking compared to his ex-bully, especially with his cargo breathes and gauntlets. He took a deep breath. Katsuki isn't that old person anymore. He can do this. Where do you think you're going, nerd? Said boy yelled at him. His palms were clammy, and tiny sparks started flying down out of them. This single moment of overthinking cost Izuku a burning hand grabbing his farem, going for making him go off guard. Then he came at him. An opening. Deku took his reaching arm after a mini explosion was released his way, and pulled. I have known you for years, and you still use a thick right hook to start a fight? The blonde was lifted to the air, shocked. Izuku slammed him to the ground, seconds later trying to tie a struggling Katsuki. Stop moving, Kachin? He asked, not believing that it would change anything. In response, Katsuki just glared at him. After he finished up, he ran up the stairs and found Uraraka standing right in front of Ida. When he noticed him, he tried one of the villain phrases he had been practicing loudly, and Ochako turned to look who was he talking to. I'm sorry, Deku-kun, he saw me around the corner. She apologized. It's okay. I'm sorry I couldn't come sooner. He calmed her down. They suched looks, knowing what to do. They only needed to touch the huge rocket, so they took a risk and ran. At the same time, around the room from different ways. Ida was so confused he didn't know which one to chase, so he decided to go for the weapon. Of course, after these few seconds he made up his mind and took too long. Everyone knew then. When All Might's booming voice was crinkling over the microphone. Team Heroes win. Good job everybody. Everything was getting too loud with the explosions and All Might, but Izuku smiled through it. He came to Ida to compliment him of making a good opponent, and Katsuki even told him he did well. In his own way, at least. He couldn't save himself from a trip to Recovery Girl. After trying to convince his friends and Katsuki, he can take care of it at home with some burn cream. At the end of the day, Izuku was left alone to walk back to the school property, heading to the dorms when he tripped. But this time it wasn't from himself, but a group of kids on his year that he was passing next to tripped him. Tired, he barely managed to catch himself on time. He heard a few giggles, and watch where you're going. But he ignored them as the last of the classmates they were waiting for ran out of the class to join them. He was so drained. But his heart was blooming with new friends. Izuku entered the classroom the next morning, only to find it empty. It wasn't that early, but even Ida still wasn't here. Awful silence was the only thing that was present. So he waited. And he waited. He sat down in his assigned seat and waited. He got bored, so he cleaned the class in a flash, but no one came. He decided to go walk around to see if at least some people are here. He found comfort in a few students complaining to each other about something he couldn't hear, but that's it. That was suspicious. It was too quiet. Then he saw why. Izuku decided to go outside to the main gate, when he was attacked by a large group of people yelling at students on the other side, blocking the way in. The press was always too annoying and loud, but this was disturbing. He spotted Katsuki swallowed by the audience, screaming at everyone in sight while trying to get through. If he was being honest, that was going to take a while. He went back to the school and went straight to the teacher's lounge. Of course, without running, just speed walking. The room was almost empty, since classes were about to begin, so he spotted Eraserhead pretty fast. Aizawa-sensei? He paused, unsure how to explain the situation. Said man spared him a look, then got up and stood in front of him. What is it, Midoriya? He asked, eyeing him up and down. The reporters outside are kind of blocking the way in for the students, and I thought you could do something about it? He pointed out behind his shoulder with his thumb. The black-haired figure wasn't sure what exactly is the situation, therefore he went to the front gate to see for himself. The greenet followed with smaller and faster steps. At the moment, a few more students managed to filter inside, hiding or pushing the interviewers and camera men out of the way. This gave an extra chance for other students to go over the formed way, carved in the audience. Soon Principal Nizu joined Aizawa as they analyzed the problem. The two conflicted over something, while Izuku tried to catch Bakugo, who managed to thread his way in. He was steaming with anger, like a ticking bomb about to explode over the tiniest comment. Izuku came to check on him, while heading inside. Then he had an idea. What if he could help get the reporters away? No, that wouldn't work, but they can always reschedule a conference with All Might. Midoriya, go back to class. It's about to begin. He didn't even realize he stopped on his tracks. Eraserhead didn't even turn to face him, still half talking to the mouse in question. What if I can help Dash? We got this. Don't hold yourself over it, it's fine. There it is again. That feeling. He is the same quirkless, useless kid. No matter what. He went to follow his friend's lead, taking him to class. You got lucky, nerd. Living inside the school. Bakugo said as they entered the huge door. I guess. Izuku tried to relate it to the joke. The two sat down, but Midoriya couldn't focus on anything or get the emptiness out of his brain. After a few minutes, the classroom was filled with angry, tired teenagers, all chatting endlessly. What a mess. These reporters were brutal, man. Dude, that was so not manly of them. Yeah, what a fuss. The rest of the classes went by fast and smoothly. At lunch break, Izuku sat with Uraraka, Ida, Shinso, and a few more of his new friends. They were having a small talk which Izuku wasn't participating in, dozing off a bit and staring at his tray of food, when suddenly some alarm about a breach in security went off. They just can't have a quiet, normal day, right? Everything became a mess. Students at the cafeteria swarmed out, pushing each other and getting stuck at the too small door. Loud noises and screaming filled the air, and people who were familiar with each other were separated and now surrounded by strangers. Izuku was now alone, still figuring out what the heck is going on after he daydreamed for a few seconds. Can this day get any better? The whole building was flooded with students, pushing each other out of their way and crashing with others. The ground was shaking, heads were bumping, and feet stepped on different ones. Someone calling his name from afar. Or was it close? He didn't know anymore. In seconds he found himself flat on the window, head hitting the cold glass and cheeks smudging against it. His stomach growled, missing his forgotten meal. He stared outside for a few moments, when he saw the same people from the morning, the reporters. But this time they were exposed. The gate was wide open. Did someone unlock it? How were they allowed in at all? Did they make an agreement? Then why was the alarm on? His mind was full. It doesn't matter right now. Everyone needed to know this. Izuku was screaming his lungs out, but his voice got swallowed by the shoutings in the hall. What should he do? He can't move too much without getting an elbow to the nose, and his head now hurts like hell. But he needed to find someone. Maybe one of his classmates, yes. They can cooperate to calm everyone down. He looked around when he stumbled upon another problem. He was too short. Because for years his diet was limited, and based on half-cooked instant noodles, his growth sprout was probably delayed, and maybe even wasted. He hoped not. He watched as students kept pushing in the hallway, but not getting out at the same rate. Then, out of the blue, he spotted a stiff arm chopping the air, yelling at people about their behavior or something. Ida. Izuku tried to catch his attention as he felt relief washing over him, but too soon. He let his guard down, and as he anticipated, got an elbow to his face from someone tall spinning on their heels. The taste of salty BLD leaked down to his mouth and dripped on his uniform. He kept on moving forward towards the navy-haired head, slightly taller than the students around him. Ida-kun, he yelled with a now screechy voice. Said boy turned and Izuku saw his gaze jumping behind his square glasses until his eyes landed on him. Midoriya-kun, are you O-? He got closer and stopped when he saw the crimson traces of BLD on Izuku's face. Your nose? You should go to recovery, girl. His limbs slicing the tight space between the two as they speak. More like shout. Izuku wiped his lips and nose with his farime. I'm fine. Can you help me out? There is no actual break-in. It's just the press from the morning. Ida looked concerned. That is indeed unpredictable, but there is no use. No one is listening. He admitted. Then a girl with brown hair was pushed between them. Izuku scrambled to help her not lose her balance. Are you all right, Uraraka-san? It's you. She looked at him with utter relief. Deku-kun, Ida-kun, I'm so glad I found you guys. I was so scared. She sighed. Behind her Yaoyorozu followed, with a worried expression on her face. Midoriya-kun, is your nose okay? Izuku waved her off. His mind raced. The loud noises in the background didn't help at all. Hey, Yaoyorozu, can you make me a megaphone? And Uraraka-san, can I ask you for a favor? When they nodded, clueless, he continued. Can you make Ida-kun float, please? We need to find a way to catch everyone's attention. It's not really a breach in security, it's just the reporters. When he finished, Momo handed him the megaphone, and Ochako was already activating her quirk on Ida, who was now trying to regain his position in zero gravity, holding to the megaphone for his life. Everyone, calm down, this is not an appropriate behavior for UA students. There is no breach in security, it was just the press transpassing. Everyone went silent. Please. Evacuate from the hall calmly. It was a bit slow, but pieces of floor were getting more and more visible. Uraraka lowered Ida and released her quirk. The adrenaline rush flooding in his veins lowered, and the pain was starting to get insufferable. Maybe he should go to recovery girl now that it's over. Something didn't sit right. The more he thought about it, the more this entire break-in didn't make any sense. He was on his way to recovery girl with Uraraka, Ida, Yaoyorozu, and the sea of injured students waiting to get healed. His brain never ceases activity. So did someone from the staff let the press inside? Or maybe it was the work of one of the reporters' quirks. No, that can't be, it would count as illegal quirk usage. But still the possibilities were endless, and it was dreading. Although not as much as waiting for his turn at recovery girl's office. He could just go back to class and come back later with no pressure. That sounds nice. Maybe he can see if his friends are fine, and then make them go back to class with him. At the end of the day, he did remember to go back to her, but due to the exhaustion of the last week and the missing lunch he ended up falling asleep right there. He woke up an hour later with no more BLD in his nostrils and mouth, and still feeling tired. When he lifted his hand to feel his nose, he found a band-aid on it. He was also hungry again, but that could wait. All he wanted to do was figure out how the press got in, but his body had different plans. The moment Izuku closed the door behind him, he collapsed on his bed. Too groggy to move, he stared at his desk, the notebooks aligned on the small shelf, his entire life's work. His eyelids felt droopy, so he closed them, waiting for sleep to find its way into silencing his mind's thoughts. Today we will be having a field trip to the USJ facility. Aizawa's voice boomed through the silence, the same silence that broke moments later by chatters of joy. Everyone went quiet after a glance of red eyes. The USJ stands for Unforeseen Simulation Joint. We will be working on your rescue skills with Pro Heroes 13 and All Might, So suit up with your hero costumes and wait outside near the bus. Chattering students rumbled out of the classroom, competing to the changing rooms. Izuku still didn't have a costume, but now he had a thin but strong rope he could tie criminals with. He put on his gym uniform quickly and left to find his teacher and the school bus. It was exiting. Rescue is the main reason why he wanted to be a hero, and now he finally gets the chance to improve this skill. Oh, you thought? The ride was stretching too long. Azui commented something about Katsuki's attitude, or that he will never be popular, but all Izuku could focus on was how Bakugo tried to oppose that opinion but tried with all his strength not to snap on her. He really has changed. And for the best. It took him off guard sometimes, but he can try getting used to this. Everything was changing anyways, so it didn't feel like that big of a deal at the moment. He leaned on the window. He should thank Bakugo later. For taking things to his own hands and doing his best, of course. Izuku felt like his childhood friend never got praised about it, that's for sure. He wasn't really in the mood to talk to somebody. He kept his walls up and prepared. He didn't even realize he was doing it or knew what for, but his instinct screamed at him to be vigilant. He watched the school's institutions pass by in slow motion. In the background he heard the bus engine running, which he was certain is normal, but the fact that the last time he was on a bus was more than 10 years ago made him paranoid. His attention passed to his classmates getting ready to leave as a giant dome appeared on the front windshield. He caught a small look from Bakugo, who turned his head the second he saw Izuku's eyes on him. He let out a weak, tired sigh and got off the bus. The structure was huge. It was so gigantic that it had different areas to mimic different surroundings. In front of the class gathering stood Aizawa, and near him Pro Hero 13. Where's All Might? The entire class was having these questions, but all their sensei answered was that All Might couldn't come in his monotone voice. Still something felt off for him too, and Izuku spotted a glimpse of it in his eyes. As much as Izuku cared to question it, a part of him felt relief for not having to deal with the number one hero, and the odd looks the guy spared him every 5 minutes. The two present pros started to explain what was today's purpose, and what they were supposed to do when something caught his eye. A little amount of purple mist swirled in the air behind the heroes. His face twitched uncomfortably. "Sensei, what is that?" He and a few other students pointed. He turned around, scarf in hand, when people started dropping in from nowhere. The purple mist must have been some sort of a warp gate. How many people could it fit? Can it split up or expand? Izuku knew it wasn't the time to geek about quirks, but this time it was important. This can easily lead to disaster. Stay back. Those are villains. 13. Protect the students. Aizawa's voice sounded cold and calm, but a hint of surprise snuck in it. Izuku's feet unconsciously moved to a tense fighting stance. Then, every single clear space filled with the same dark violet smoke. All of their senses went distorted, up was down, and a smile was a frown, and then it left. Izuku shook off the rest of the new feeling when he realized he was underwater. His vision was blurry, with a small source of light coming from a direction that felt like up. He felt like he was choking. The struggle hit him at once, when something rope-like pulled him out carefully. He gasped. God, how he had missed being exposed to air. He coughed water from his body, wiping his eyes while scanning for his new area. "Are you okay, Midoriya-chan?" The voice of his classmate sounded slightly faint due to some water in his ears. "Yes, thank you, Azui-san," he said with a shudder. "I told you to call me Tsuyo-chan." She corrected him. Near her stood Shinso with a neutral expression. Inside he was worried, of course, but he didn't know how to show it. The three of them were standing on a shipwreck in the water zone, separated from the class. What happened? Did the villains just invade to their lesson? He didn't pose these thoughts because the answer was very obvious. "Is the rest of the class in small groups too?" Shinso asked. The trio looked around. From afar they could spot some of their classmates scattered all over the facility in different destruction zones and surrounded by villains. Eraserhead was separated from 13 and was alone in the middle when a guy with light blue hair. But a few things felt off. Where were the villains they were supposed to fight? They sent Azui to the water zone. The villains didn't know their quirks. That just made it a lot more easier. Water dripped from his hair and clothes to the ground. He looked down again when the entire ship moved. The villains were here. He formed a plan. Izuku rubbed the bridge of his nose above the band-aid from the security breach, as he formed a plan. Sending a few glances to Shinso and Tsuyo, he explained to them what they needed to do. Of course he also had a part in this, quirk or no quirk. They counted down. Point 3. Point 2. Point 1. The ship tilted to the side again. Go. Izuku whispered. Tsuyo pretended to fall into the water. She has a frog quirk, so water shouldn't be much of a problem to her. Quite the opposite. She has an advantage over them as a fast swimmer. Izuku was excited to see her quirk in action, but he waved it off, focus returning to him. The two watched as she progressed in the lake, drawing a few villains and then more and more and more. Then, she sent her tongue and wrapped it around the boat's railing. Pulling herself towards the shipwreck, she climbed back on it, using her stickiness and the help of Izuku. In the meantime, Shinso was already warming up his voice. Hey! What do you want? He screamed at them. Izuku doesn't think he has ever heard him shout this loudly before. Almost all of the villains gave some sort of vocal answer. Shinso grinned. Cuff your fellow criminals and then yourself. He seemed to concentrate strong on keeping them from releasing and breaking the control. Everyone seemed to be strangled in some ropes and a few fishing nets they found on shore. The three teens got off the ship fast and ran. They made their way to the locked exit, but when it came to view, Izuku paused in his place. What is it, Midoriya-chan? Azui asked. She pointed to the door. We should get out to get help? He turned around. You do that? I bet the two of you are more exhausted than me after using your quirk and on so many people. He eyed the purple-headed trying to hide a migraine. But I can still help others. Just go find someone. I'll send anyone faster if I see others. He walked to the center, where he last had sight of his teacher, not seeing them nod. Behind him, he made sure the two left, so as soon as he was stepping alone he relaxed. Help was coming. That was progress. But too soon. Izuku went up the stairs and his eyes widened at what he saw. The man with light blue hair covered in hands. Shigaraki, the villain. He stumbled upon rumors of him in the past, monologuing to Eraserhead, and besides him stood a monster. That was the definition. A tall, black, brain-exposed creature. It was terrifying. He said that this monster was made to kill All Might. Is that why they were here? But All Might ended up not coming. How will that make them react? He couldn't wait any longer, so he jumped outside the moment he saw Shigaraki coming to attack Eraserhead. Except he just yelled out, "Gnome! Take him down!" Like a leader of a big march, he pointed at Aizawa, and in less than a second a dark blur flew past them and pinned the hero to the ground. Izuku wasn't fast enough. Aizawa passed out. He saw crimson liquid leaking. BLD, that wasn't his. He picked up the first sharp piece of rubble he could find, and jumped on the monster. There was nothing he could do except for hitting the obvious weakness with the rock over and over. At first, it seemed like it regenerated as if it never got it. But then, the gnome seemed to ease up, and the hit that he got finally took damage. It slackened, releasing its hold on Aizawa. Izuku had to get him out of here. Hey, hands guy. You. Shigaraki turned his head up at him, surprise taking over his facade. How about you take your buddies and leave, and mind your own business? The guy was angry. He started throwing a tantrum like a kid losing a video game for the ninth time in a row. How dare you? How did you slow down his regeneration? You cheater! Kurogyri! Why is he glitching? He shouted when the purple mist arrived, this one with yellow eyes, scanning the situation. Izuku took the chance and dragged his teacher away from the scene as the two villains talked about 3 students that left the facility. 3? That was great. He quickly used the man's scarf to wrap any bleeding wounds. He scanned him again, making sure he was still there and alive with a pulse, and returned to distract the villains. Kurogyri left to talk to somebody else, and Shigaraki attacked, annoyed by him. It was pointless. He was now sparring with a villain just like his time in the streets. He was getting tired, huffing heavily after every move. The hand-covered man used an open window to land all 5 fingers on Izuku's arm. Izuku hissed. His skin started to crumble between the fingers, BLD oozing out. He tried to pull away his hand, but there was no way out. Out of nowhere it stopped. "You really are cool, Eraserhead." Shigaraki strained out. Izuku saw an opening and tripped Shigaraki. Behind him Aizawa lost his consciousness again. "I am here." All Might barged through the door alongside the other faculty members. They all stopped in place when they saw the mess. Kurogiri came back. "Tamura, we should leave," the heroes called for backup. "It will arrive any minute now." While Shigaraki was busy yelling at everyone now that All Might was here, the heroes started a counterattack. Izuku grabbed Eraserhead carefully and headed with him to the exit. Red blaring lights arrived as soon as the two snuck out of the USJ, immediately rushing out of the vehicles to help Aizawa. They wrapped his arm while he waited for his friends to come so he can see they were fine. The moment he got to his dorm he crashed. The sound of the heart monitor was beeping through the silence. Aizawa stared at his blonde friend keeping him company. He woke up about an hour ago, got healed by Recovery Girl, got back to nap and woke up again. Present Mike was making an attempt to chat about what happened, and assure that everyone is doing good and no one got hurt when this came out. "Zashi, I swear, he looked just like Shirakumo. It happened again and I almost couldn't save him this time too," he said with his usual gruff voice. The two shared a sigh. "You know, I miss him too. There must have been something that you haven't seen before to make it pop up again," Yamada suggested, tilting his head to the side. The pair were still in their hero costumes, Aizawa because he just woke up, and Yamada because he hadn't had the chance to go home. Eraserhead thought for a long moment. He remembered things blurring, but one thing caught his attention in Midoriya's face. The band-aid on the nose. He pointed at his own, where the white strip was placed. The memory just jumped in. He added after a silent break. Mike sent him a sad smile. "You know it wasn't your fault, right?" Aizawa nodded. "Everyone else got out uninjured thanks to you. But please, don't scare me like that ever again." Yamada sent his hand to hold the others. Aizawa's bandaged face softened as he accepted the gesture. "I still can't see a good way Izuku is going to handle all that pressure alone. After seeing me injured like that. He doesn't have the parents to support him through that." His gaze moved slowly between Yamada and the rest of the room, signaling his uneasiness. "The little listener is very strong. Maybe later you can go check on his elbow." The blonde grinned and added, "Well, it's still the middle of the night, so let's get some rest. Everything else can wait for tomorrow," he declared. Aizawa hummed quietly in agreement as he settled down. Then again, he couldn't help but think about how to help the boy. When Izuku got up the next morning he just started crying. His body was so tense, but now that the adrenaline wore off and everything came back to him after the night, it was all too much. He hugged his patched-up arm close to his ear. He knew he should go to Recovery Girl, but what was the point? Would he even be able to be a hero if he can't save the one person who wants him in their life? He got up from bed and stood in the middle of the small dorm room. Right, uniform. He headed to pick up his clothes and carefully took off his shirt. Then he stopped to remember that school was cancelled for the day. He was left tired and clueless of what should he do next, so he just sat on the bed. He just sat for an hour that seemed like a few minutes until his bandages itched. But just to touch close to the wound alerted pain. It reminded him that he needed to take a shower, so he snatched a towel and although his legs wobbled, he left to the common baths. "You will never be enough, useless Deku." The next morning Izuku woke up to a nightmare, went for a run, and got to class early. Well, not earlier than Ida of course. The rest of the class came in as usual, and every other thing seemed as if nothing changed. The only thing that seemed to be different was the moment Aizawa got into the class and his head was still wrapped in bandages, just like Izuku's arm. Every noise that flooded the classroom after their teacher told about the sports festival went dim, and Izuku's mind went spiraling all the way. Is it safe? What made them decide that? How was Aizawa standing here right now? He got hurt. Izuku wasn't fast enough to save him. There was BLD. The League of Villains can teleport anytime and everywhere. If they weren't the final boss, who is? How can they stop them before anyone gets hurt again? How? Dismissed. Midoriya, stay for a minute. Before he noticed, the lesson was over, and Eraserhead's voice calling his name lunched him awake. Yes, sensei? He bit the inside of his cheeks, nervous. But the man seemed to completely ignore the spirals for now, locking their looks. "Have you gone to Recovery Girl about your arm yet?" he asked, strands of night black hair falling forward as if to protect his vision. Izuku blinked in surprise as stared at him for a very long moment. No, not yet," he garbled out. "That's fine, I'll come with you," Aizawa answered. They left the classroom. "So, how are you holding up, kid?" Izuku slowed down a bit. "I'm fine," he said carefully and carelessly at the same time. Aizawa threw the growing concern away from his face. "Don't tell me you were worried about me." He spotted a small glance at him before the green eyes turned away. "Izuku, you can worry about yourself sometimes, you know? Even if the people you used to be around never gave you the chance to. I'm fine, you see? Because I got help from someone who isn't myself. Like Recovery Girl. And like you." Tears streamed down Izuku's freckled cheeks, and now not just from the pain in his elbow. "Got that, problem child?" Izuku nodded. He wiped his face, and the two got to Recovery Girl's office. They got almost fully healed, had some gummies, and Izuku returned to his dorm room. The sports festival has arrived, and every first year has gathered to hear the opening speech made by Bakugo. And as you can expect, it didn't go the smoothest. Over the last few weeks the entire school worked harder than ever, trying to get ready for the sports festival. Izuku doesn't have anyone who will be watching him on TV, but he still needed to prove everyone who will be watching that quirkless people can be heroes. He also heard from his classmates that they will be moving in to the dorms sooner. He guessed it was half from the villain attack on the USJ, and half so he won't stay there alone. He warmed up for the first round, the obstacle course. He felt prepared. Except that he wasn't ready for it mentally. "Hey, green kid." Izuku turned towards the call. "You actually gonna use your quirk to win?" A tall guy from business course with dark red hair stood, laughing with a few of his friends. Some of them looked a bit unpleased. Izuku opened his mouth to answer when Ida came scolding them for not seeing he was preparing for the race. He was thankful for Ida's strict behavior. He walked away and sighed in relief. The less people knowing he doesn't have a quirk for now the better. Just like the entrance exam, Present Mike gave the go and the people charged forward. Izuku rushed forward, dodging the robots and not wasting power over them. An ice slide formed near him and the robots, so Izuku snatched an iron plate from a crushed robot and slid on it as well, catching distance. He went past the abyss carefully, while some used their quirks or support items to get ahead. Speaking of which, he needed to find a way to get advantage on everyone. He could have used one of the large robots, but looking back he saw everything was frozen. Probably Todoroki. In front of him he saw a mine field. The wheels in his head worked fast as he formed a plan. Using the metal scrap he found himself still clutching onto, he dug out mines, and combined them to create a massive explosion. He winced in the air as memories from middle school attacked his thread of thoughts. No, he has to pay attention. When he landed he placed a bet if he would land on a mine, and hit the metal scrap on the ground. It exploded. He was sent forward, and kept running. Bakugo and Todoroki on his tail, the three arrived almost at the same time. But Izuku was first. The next round was in groups. Izuku needed to find someone who will want to team up with him, even if he has the most points tied up to him. "Hey Deku-kun, wanna team up?" Uraraka jumped in front of him with enthusiasm. "Are you sure? That would make you a big target too." He shared his concern. "Yeah, don't worry about it." She smiled. Izuku was so thankful to have her as a friend. They got two more teammates, Tokoyami and Hatsune from support course. "So, what's the plan?" she asked, the crosses on her eye moving continuously. "Well, I thought maybe we could get rid of the headband," Izuku said, half thinking how to make this idea work. "But we're not allowed to take the headband off our heads, and if we throw it off bounds when people could with stretchy quirks take it back to them." Uraraka explained and Tokoyami nodded. "I know. Hatsune, can one of your inventions burn anything?" Izuku asked. The girl's eyes literally sparkled. "Start." Present Mix's voice echoed in the stadium. The group pulled up near the border, now in the sky. Many teams were on their way to them. They had to act fast. Hatsune messed with one of her items until it made a small explosion, lighting up Izuku's headband. Soon enough everyone was fighting others, and the scent of burnt hair filled the air. It worked like magic. They used one of the distracted teams and stole their headband plus another one they stole. When the buzzer was heard to signal the end of the round, Izuku saw that their group was in the second place right under Bakugo. "We did it!" They all yelled and shared high fives. The last round was a 1v1 tournament. Izuku was up against Shinso. He doesn't like fighting against his friends, but convinced himself it was like training. It was time for his battle. When he got out to the stage, he spotted Shinso on the other side, determined looking. The fight started. Izuku waited to see what his first move would be, both since he knew about his quirk, and because that's how he was used to fight on the streets. Shinso opened his mouth. If he's all about his quirk, then Izuku decided to start moving forward, prepared to attack. "Why won't you tell us your quirk? If it's that powerful, you shouldn't have a problem with revealing it. Unless it's not, and you were just being a hypocrite. That day you invited me to lunch with the class the first time. I saw Bakugo's look when I asked what your quirk was, and no one knew," he said. Izuku stopped moving. "Got you," Shinso thought. "It's a trap. It's a trap. It's a trap. So I guess you are dash," Shinso continued, but was cut off by Izuku. "I'm quirkless dash," she stopped. Shinso looked surprised by what he said as he gained control over him. His face softened as he confronted himself about his next move. Izuku was stuck in his mind again, just like that day with the sludge villain. He felt like he couldn't breathe again. Walk out of bounds? Shinso's order sounded sorry. Izuku gasped for air as he regained his control over his body. Tears filled his eyes. Midoriya is out of bounds. Shinso is the winner. Shinso noticed the crying and came to check on him. "Hey, are you okay?" "I'm sorry for all of that. I just really wanted to prove them that my quirk is good for hero work." "Yeah, that was so cool." Izuku smiled and rubbed his eyes. He held his hand out. "Good fight." Shinso grinned as well. He took the offered hand and shook it. The two left the stadium. In the end, Bakugo won, of course. In the second place was Todoroki, and in the third was Ida, who had to leave for family business, so Shinso replaced him. The boy has never looked so happy in his entire life. Someone in a dark room watched the green-haired teen from a screen. "Interesting, quirkless, you say? I see. Imagine what would happen if I gave him a quirk." Don't look, that's the guy I told you about. I heard he is quirkless." "What's he doing in UA? God, Izuku doesn't want to be here." "But he is. He was tired after the sports festival, and slept until his alarm clock this morning. He didn't have neither the power nor the time for a run. He was walking to class later than usual, and the consequences were raining on him. He finally made it to class, but as usual he can't have a moment to calm down." "Midoriya-kun, why didn't you tell us that you're quirkless?" Kaminari whined as he noticed him walking in. "Kaminari-kun, that's rude." Ida scolded him lightly. Izuku completely forgot that the class knew too now. "Oh yeah. If you guys don't want to be friends with me anymore, it's okay," he said in defeat, heading for his seat. The class gasped. "Oh God, I'm so sorry. That's probably why." Izuku just smiled. "It's fine. I had a bit of a bad experience with people knowing that I am quirkless." He got to his desk as his friends shared a concerned glance. "Also, Ida, I'm sorry to hear about your brother. I hope he gets better soon. He is a great hero," Izuku added. "Thank you, Midoriya-kun." Izuku could swear there was something else in his tone. Ida's brother, Ingenium, was hurt in an act of the hero killer. That's why he left the sports festival. Class started, and Aizawa entered and wrote something on the board. "These are your internship suggestions. If you didn't get any, there is always a list of heroes to choose from that everyone can go to." Everyone started yelling in as they found themselves on the list. Of course Bakugo had to be first, and then Todoroki. It's just the nature of society to like the people with the flashy quirk. He was last. He had none. Absolute zero. Like the loser he was. Class dismissed. Midoriya, a moment. He heard Aizawa-sensei chant as usual. He stayed while his friends left. "I talked to Nizu, and he agrees that you don't have to do your internship since you already have street experience, and now that people know you are quirkless, we don't want them exploding on you. If you choose to do your internship after all, you may choose from the list." I will personally make sure you will get the same treatment as others. Aizawa explained the reason he was leaving Izuku behind. Said boy had no idea where this came from. He froze out of shock for a few seconds before pushing out a quick response. I'll think about it, he mumbled. The silence got cut off by a muffled noise coming from his belly. He let out an awkward shaky smile. Dismissed. Go to lunch with your classmates. I know you still have trouble eating enough, but I would still like you to try. Eraserhead finished and left the classroom, leaving Izuku and the stairs to go towards the cafeteria hall. The truth is he wasn't hungry at all. Nauseous even. But his body begged desperately for basic nutrients, so he headed over to lunch rush. He found his now real friends who like him for who he is, sitting at his favorite table. He ate a few bites before giving up completely on getting food inside of him. When classes ended, a few students from the general ed course caught him wandering the forest close to his dorm. He still had his backpack on, and didn't have the chance to return and take in everything that had happened today. Yo, Quirkless kid. Is it really true that you don't have a quirk? He heard them call after him. His head lowered as he turned around to look at them. There was a short kid with purple ball for hair, the one who shall not be named XD, a kid with hardened knees and brown hair, and a kid with light blue hair and no visible quirk. Yeah. Izuku said carefully, ready to walk away any minute. A smirk was now plastered on the brown-haired figure. Izuku backed off as his mind displayed a red flag about this whole situation. They cornered him to a wall of tree branches and logs. Izuku wanted to fight, but he didn't want to hurt them. They did nothing wrong. He wants to protect himself, but that would only add oil to the campfire. But he froze. He is in the same situation as his entire life. Just like middle school. A punch by the blue-haired was aimed at his face, but he wasn't fast enough to react. He's too slow. His head hit the tree trunk behind him, and he felt warm liquid dripping from his face. What makes you think you can take our places at the hero course, huh? The purple dude said. Yeah, you can't be a hero, so say it. How did you cheat your way here? The brown-haired yelled as he kicked Izuku with his stiff knee. He folded into himself, eyes shut from pain as one last kick made its way at him. He remained silent the whole time, and that did the trick. The trio indeed got bored and decided to call it a day. Yo, let's get out of here, we need to get home. Lucky us, there are no security cameras in the woods. No one would ever believe him anyways. What a loser. What was he doing in here anyway? Laughter echoed through the forest. Their voices weakened and weakened until he couldn't hear them. Izuku gasped in relief, trying to catch his breath back. From now on he will need to limit the places he goes to. For now he just hurried back to his dorm. He didn't have a first aid kit, and he didn't want to bother recovery girl after working hours, so a wet paper towel will have to do. He wiped the BLD from the slice on his lips. Probably from his own teeth. There was a drop of BLD from his nose, and he could feel the bruise on his face slowly forming. His head pounded, and the ice pack he brought from the common kitchen felt like it was doing nothing but sting the edges of his nerves. He changed his clothes carefully and fell asleep for 5 hours until his usual pre-morning run. The next day had just begun, and Izuku couldn't have 3 peaceful seconds since the moment he woke up. He felt lightheaded, but differently than the hungry lightheadedness. His head hurt. He took his daily morning run a bit slower than usual. He got dressed up and headed to class. He needed to inform Eraserhead he would be doing his internship with Amplifier. He had done some research on her, and she doesn't really cares that much about quirks. He didn't get a good moment to check the mirror, but by the looks on his friends' faces, bruises were probably now decorating his nose and hesitant smile. The second Bakugo stepped in, he had to step back multiple times from the attacking, protective behavior. What the hell happened to you, nerd? He asked too loudly to Izuku's opinion. The entire class had their attention to them, and Izuku felt himself shrink under the pressure. I'm fine, it's nothing. Just an accident. He made a failed attempt to calm everyone down, and got to his desk. Bakugo followed him with his gaze, sending worried glares every once in a while as he returned to his own place. At the end of the lesson, Izuku told Aizawa about his internship, and the gruff man nodded and agreed to check on it, but sent one last look of concern as he walked away, noting to talk about the injuries later. Izuku returned, feeling successful for making it through the morning without bothering anyone. Near lunch it all came crashing down. He was walking to eat with a few classmates when he got dizzy, and the light got too bright. He lost his balance and leaned on the wall until he couldn't, so he dropped down, senses overwhelming. Deku-kun, are you okay? Whoa, Midoriya-kun, what's wrong? Everyone gathered around him, unsure what is going on. Izuku was thankful they were blocking the bright lights. I think I just hit my head. Yesterday. He explained. D-minute Deku, how did you manage? You know what? Never mind. Does anyone have a flashlight? He heard Bakugo's voice ordering around. There was a soft click, and someone pushed a light in his eyes. Yep, that's a concussion. There is no actual FING way this was an accident. Something stinks about this. Someone who was probably Bakugo said, but the blurry edges in his vision expanded, and the people sounded muffled like he was underwater. He passed out. When he woke up he noticed he no longer felt too hazy, every trace of pain was now gone, and this was his best sleep by far since he got into UA. That could only mean one thing. Recovery girl. He was cornered. She was standing at the doorway talking quietly to Aizawa, assumed to be about him or work stuff. Or both. He felt the bandage wrapped around his head move as he got up. When the two spotted him they walked back inside. Eraserhead opened his mouth, but Chio was one step ahead of him. What were you thinking, young man? You should have come to me the moment this happened. She scolded him. Izuku didn't even try to compromise. He just mumbled a soft, I'm sorry. But that's where Aizawa caught something wasn't right. Most of the times the kid would try to overcome the reprimand by claiming he was bothering them, but not today. Kid, I need you to tell us everything that happened. I know you don't lie, but if you will try then I'll know. He said carefully, voice rough but kind. So Izuku did. He shared his concerns that the kids were targeting him as well. Aizawa hummed to show he understood. I will take care of that. Next time don't hesitate to call me or one of the other teachers. He added and left. Izuku nodded. After that, he never saw those kids again at school. Bakugo, however, seemed to be around him more. He didn't really care, he actually enjoyed his presence these days. It was now time for Class 1A's internships. They were expecting it for a long time, working with real pro heroes. Amplifier turned out to be really nice, so Izuku was having some good time until all of a sudden, Nomus, and in a huge quantity, appeared in the streets. They were everywhere, scaring everyone. The heroes struggled to fight them off. All of them seemed to have multiple quirks. This was bad. Amplifier had sent him to rescue civilians only, so he did. But then he heard a scream of pain. He knew from his experience in the streets that this is what pain sounds like. It was against his nature to ignore it, so he checked one last time that no one else needed help, and made his way towards the scream. To his surprise, he saw Ida on the ground, and above him stood a man with two katanas, hiding in the shadows. Near Ida lied pro-hero native, and they both seemed to be hurt. Ida-kun, what's going on? He asked as he revealed himself getting closer slowly. The masked man smiled. Well, isn't that nice? I see you have another friend coming to help you avenge your brother. He flipped his tongue around. Is that the hero killer? Izuku cried out. Midoriya-kun, this is not your fight. Ida yelled but got cut off abruptly by Stain. I have seen you at the festival, very impressive. But that wasn't my first encounter with you. No, I remember you from a year ago, on the streets saving people at nights. You are a true hero, you deserve to live. But he pointed at Tenya. Is a fake. Searching for me to get revenge for his brother. So let me, the hero killer Stain, do my job, and I will let you Stain was knocked off a strong kick from a certain green-haired boy. What makes you think you should decide who will live and who will die? He said after sending Stain's weapons away from his reach and getting up quickly, fighting stance on. This society needs to be purged. You don't understand. Someone needed to stain himself with the BLD of the fakes. The anti-hero objected, heading for his swords but getting blocked and cornered by Izuku. Don't let him stab you. It's how I got paralyzed. Ida pointed out and started moving around. So BLD or pain activated probably, Izuku thought and nodded as he blocked a hit from the man. but missed the way he swooped over to one of his katanas and jumped back, liking the BLD that probably belonged to Tenya. "You'd make a great hero. What a shame I have to kill you too," he said as Ida stopped squirming, paralyzed again. So BLD activated Quirk, but he has to have the BLD inside his system. Now that Izuku understood everything, he formed a plan. He rushed forward, stepping on the sword while kicking it back. Stain pulled out a knife, but Izuku was able to neutralize his dagger after getting a slash on the shoulder. He threw the knife the other side and hit the guy's pressure point to knock him out. He sighed in relief, heading to check on his friend and the hero. "Ida-kun, what were you thinking? What if I never would have showed up?" he protested while treating his injury. Ida looked devastated. Izuku checked native as well and tended to his wounds, but he also found a pair of Quirk erasing HNDCFFS. He took them and placed them on Stein's wrists behind his back. He carried them all one by one to a main street when he finally found a hero who could call for help, since he didn't have a phone yet, and Ida's one was broken. Finally, help arrived and stabilized the pro hero and Tenya, who apologized endlessly while Izuku tried to tell him it's alright. This time, he did go to get help addressing the gash on his arm, and that was the wiser decision because he needed stitches. Izuku looked to his right, where Ida was lying in his hospital bed, and behind him sat Todoroki, who got their duo to frost bites from battles. The trio was put together in the same hospital room, being in the same class, but Izuku was only kept there for one night as a precaution. The hospital crew didn't know exactly how much BLD he lost from that slash, but it was a bit much. So he got liquids injected to him and stayed for watch overnight. He was restless as always and decided to walk around their room, waiting for his guardian teacher to sign his release forms so he could get back to UA. "Midoriya-kun, I am very sorry for dragging you into a battle that wasn't yours. I made a lot of mistakes, and I will not repeat them." Ida kept going on and on like a broken record, and Izuku kept telling him it happened in the past, and the most important part is that he understood where he went wrong and no one got hurt too bad. "Oh, Todoroki, you should probably use your fire next time to avoid worse injuries," he added carefully. The teen lowered his head. "I refuse to use my left side. But thank you for your concern," he answered coldly. "Why?" Izuku now stood near Todoroki's bed. Ida was also chiming in the conversation. "I am a child of what's called quirk marriage. I will not use my father's quirk. He is the kind of man I promised myself to never be. Did he buy you off or something? It doesn't matter. I'm gonna surpass All Might without his fire, and I'll show him," he said, determined to stick to his own habits. "But it's your power, Todoroki-kun, not his. I know I shouldn't mend into your own family business, but as far as I can see, it's hurting you more than it's hurting him. You're not like him." Said boy's eyes widened with realization, like he just discovered America. He lifted his palm and looked at the gentle flames now dancing freely on it. A soft smile covered his face. "Thank you, Midoriya," he almost whispered. Ida only nodded in agreement, accepting the fact that he has done enough trouble for this short period of time. The door opened, and a nurse walked in, replacing the bandages wrapped around Izuku's arm. "I was told to inform you that someone is here to pick you up. He's waiting for you outside," she told him with a small grin. He smiled back. "Thanks. And thank you for taking care of my injury. See you guys in class." He bowed respectfully. "Oh nonsense, that's my job. I'm happy you're feeling better." She waved him goodbye kindly and went to check on the other two boys. As Izuku stepped out, he saw Present Mike in his civilian clothes greeting him. "Hello. Hey little listener. I see you're doing good." He grinned. "Yes, thank you. I hope I'm not too much trouble." "I could always take the bus." Izuku protested. "Oh no, this is nothing. You are a great kid." Yamada waved him off like it was nothing as the two got into the black vehicle. They put on the seatbelts and chatted a bit through the ride to UA. After Todoroki and Ida returned home as well, everything was back to normal. Class 1A was even getting ready for the final exams of the first trimester. This was an important part in the path of becoming a hero. He even convinced Bakugo to help tutoring their classmates who needed it for the written exam together with him. Everything was finally going great. Until the practical exam came. The test was pairs of students against teachers. Izuku was teamed up with Bakugo, which was no longer a problem since the two got along quite well. The problem was who they were going against, All Might. The #1 hero, their idol, who they both admired as kids. Izuku turned to his friend. Only one of us needs to cross the gate. We could always avoid combat. He concluded as they were getting ready. There is no way in hell that All Might would let that happen. We should prepare for that, he said. Izuku nodded in agreement. As they entered the city zone, they split up. Bakugo was walking straight to the gate as a fake decoy, while Izuku snuck behind buildings as the real decoy, taking the longer route but still keeping up with the blonde. As they predicted, All Might jumped out, pretending to act like a villain would. He attacked Katsuki while keeping an eye out for the gate to make sure Izuku isn't passing. What he didn't expect was getting attacked from above. Izuku jumped off a close-by roof and hit All Might's sensitive points. The hero sent a weak punch towards the duo, which they quickly restrained. He was clearly going easy on him, and that was frustrating. Bakugo of course noticed it fast as well. "Why are you not giving it your all, huh?" He yelled through a dodge from a sloppy kick and blasted him down. All Might was shocked from the power and was on his knees, slightly steaming. Izuku already knew, so that didn't bother him, and Bakugo was too invested in trying to get out an answer to notice. "It's because of me, Kachin, I'm sorry," Izuku whispered out, devastated. Bakugo was surprised. "Is that effing true?" All Might nodded, gasping for air a bit, defeated. I thought he could get injured too bad. But you have a quirk and you got hurt more than us together. I don't think that FING matters. Come on Deku, let's go win this stupid thing." He finished. The two ran through the gate with the principal's weird drawing that announced that they won, and did a good job. As they waited for those who were left to finish off the tests, Izuku turned to Bakugo. "Thanks for back there, Kachin. I guess now you see why I said I appreciate the less brighter heroes." He smiled. His friend grunted. "My appreciation for that BSTRD has gone down recently, and this proves me right. In the end, Team Mina and Kaminari, and Team Kirishima and Sato failed. Class 1A were having a summer quirk training camp with 1B. Everyone were expecting it, and rocking forward and backwards in every lesson, anticipating the camp. They ended up planning a trip to the mall to buy necessities for the trip. Izuku didn't know if he was even allowed off campus for stuff like that, but he wanted to befriend his classmates better. And this seemed like a great opportunity to see how they are outside of school, or what they choose to wear. Maybe he could buy a new shirt, for all his others are ripped and needs to be replaced. He also didn't have money, so that went off the equation. But still, he wanted to feel like he can be like other teens his age. He wanted to not be different again. At least he hoped so. He pulled out his new phone that Aizawa and Yamada insisted on buying him. He couldn't accept a new smartphone, since it was way too expensive. So they ended up compromising and gave him an old phone with only text and call options. Izuku gave up too and received it guilty and gladly. He opened up the texting app to the first chat with Eraserhead. He only had him and a few more friends from class. "Izuku, hey Aizawa, the class is going to the mall this week and I was wondering if I could possibly join them." "Thank you." Eraserhead, "Hey, I'll check it out and let you know." Izuku have never had a phone before, so he was a slow typer, so usually he would rather call. Except he didn't want to interrupt, and texting seemed like the other person could answer at their own time. Aizawa actually replied very fast considering his tight schedule of teaching and saving people on patrol. He returned a message about half an hour later, letting Izuku know that he got permission, only if he arrives with the class and returns with him. Sounded like a great agreement. In the end, the class headed together towards the Kiyoshi Ward shopping mall, and Izuku was excited. Katsuki and Todoroki ended up MOT coming, but the rest of the class was here. When they entered the mall, Izuku was astonished and moved by all the colorful stores. The multiple floors were visible from the ground up through the railings of each floor. He haven't been to a store for fun for a long time. Some people even recognized them from the sports festival, so Izuku tried to remain hidden behind his friends. Everyone were already splitting up to different places to go and buy different things to the trip, and soon after, Izuku found himself alone. He was in the same place he was 5 minutes ago, when they walked in together. But now they disappeared, and he couldn't see anyone. People were beginning to send weird looks at him, so he walked in. He started feeling intimidated by the crowd, so he walked to the middle of the mall to find somewhere to sit and take in the huge building. Then he felt a hand grab him in his neck, and he winced from the touch. "Oh, what a pleasant surprise to find you here. Almost like a coincidence," the stranger said with a raspy voice. And Izuku knew that voice. He turned his head carefully to see the man he denied could appear at all that day was there, threatening his existence in a finger's distance. Shigaraki Tamura. He strained out. The villain had a black hoodie drooped on his messy blue hair. This time there was no hand covering his face. "Let's have a small chat, shall we? And remember, if I put my fifth finger on you," he smiled. "So act like we're friends, will ya?" He made a gesture to a bench. "Let's go sit down, I just want to talk." They sat in the middle of the noisy shopping center, while no one noticed. Everyone else was drawn deep in their own business. "You know, I'm very unpleased. I released all the awesome gnomes to the streets that night a few weeks ago. They did so much damage. But was the thing everyone remembers? That stupid BSRD stain. I don't get it. What does he have that I don't?" He made a whole speech. Izuku thought for a few moments, slightly distracted by the large amount of people surrounding him and talking at the same time. Maybe Stain had a goal. He wanted to kill for a reason and not for fun. He wanted to make society good again. Well, in his own way. He believes All Might is the only true hero. I don't think so, but that's not the way I would take action anyway. Izuku finished answering his best. All Might. Well, I don't adore All Might either. Never mind these two. I like you. No wonder Sensei has plans for you. That reminds me about that little training camp of yours, Dash. A group of his friends arrived together. Right on time. Izuku had never been so happy to have friends. "Oh, Midoriya, there you are." "Hey, Deku-kun, who is that?" Shigaraki released his grip on Izuku's neck. Then he got up and left, sliding his hands back to his pockets. "See you at camp." Izuku gasped for air in relief, shocked. That was Shigaraki. "Call Aizawa-sensei." He crooked. His classmates did as he asked. There was an interrogation where Izuku was once again met with Detective Tsukaushi. Meanwhile, the teachers' emergency meeting was leading towards one solution. "Nizu, if they know the location of the camp, it means we should level up our defenses and relocate?" Aizawa said, still worried about Izuku and how he would be coping with the events. Mike and a few more of the crew nodded in agreement. "If that's so, I suppose this leaves us no choice. We should discuss the entry to the dorms now." Nizu concluded. "What are you talking about? The dorm system isn't supposed to be until a few months more." Snipe noted. More questioning glances were sent at Nizu. The mouse in question hopped on the table. "After 1A's last encounters with the League of Villains, I've arrived to the conclusion that the dorm system would make it safer for the students and less worries for their parents. Another benefit could be some good company for young Midoriya, who is already settled in and must be getting a bit lonely," he explained. Aizawa couldn't help but look a bit satisfied with the proposition. "That reminds me, Aizawa, Tashinori, I want you to go door duty to explain to each parents about the dorms," he added. The two heroes glared at each other, but it seemed like All Might had learned his lesson now, and was keeping a friendly demeanor at a safe distance. "Fine." Aizawa grumbled under his breath. Then it settled. "I will post a massage for those who need. I trust you to explain tomorrow to your classes?" Nizu grinned at the crew's confirmation and ended the meeting. The very next day when Aizawa announced the news to the class, they started speaking all together, asking questions as random as they can be. "Are we gonna have a private shower? Is there a TV? I hope the rooms will have separate air conditioning. How many things can we bring?" They all went silent in an instant under a flash of red eyes. "The next one to talk without permission will hand me a 5-page essay about the different types of quirks." Suddenly everyone could keep their mouth shut. Shuta's hair fell back on his exhausted face and shoulders as he blinked. "Good. Yaoyorozo. I wanted to ask what the size of our rooms is," she questioned, a bit worried. While Aizawa kept answering questions Izuku already knew the answers to because he lives in the dorms, he dozed off, wondering how will it go, and what caused the sudden move-in. It probably has something to do with him, either way. Or the fact that they met with villains twice already, first, the attack on the USJ, and then the mall, or the fact that they wanted him to feel less alone. No, that's selfish. They would never come up with that as an advantage in a pro-con thinking. Izuku blinked back to reality to the sound of a small talk. Kaminari, Zero, the 5-page essay is for until the end of next week. Plan your time correctly for it. Eraser declared as the two boys yelled the most miserable no Izuku has ever heard. The class chuckled quietly. Anyone else? He asked and waited, enjoying the quiet. All right, dismissed. Don't worry about it, I can help you guys finish it. Especially now when we will live together in the dorms. Izuku sent comfort with his suggestion. The teens grabbed it with both hands gladly. Just, thank you so much. Others like Kirishima and Momo also volunteered to help, and everyone couldn't wait to move into the shared dorms. At the end of the school day, Izuku found himself walking with some of his friends, and remembered something he was opting to ask for a long time but didn't get the chance to. What does it feel like, to have your quirk erased? The space between them filled with silent thinking. A bit like something is missing. Like trying to turn on a light bulb with no electricity. You don't feel anything? Ochako was as curious as everyone else. Izuku fiddled with his bag as he tried to recall a feeling. Nope. Just the weird aura of his quirk, but it has no effect on me. He sighed and waved goodbye kindly as his friends left the gate. Claimed he forgot his notebook and went back inside, but turned to the dorm building. Robots were roaming the place, cleaning, refilling food and running last errands. The next morning was Sunday, and Izuku woke up buzzing with enthusiasm. It was his last day alone in the dorms. Katsuki texted him later the same afternoon that Aizawa-sensei and All Might, in his full form of course, visited his and everyone else's homes to explain to their parents about the move-in. At night Izuku was unable to rest, but when he did fall asleep, he woke up an hour later, crying from a nightmare again. Except this time Shigaraki was there, threatening to use decay on his friends, and the Nomus came for him and Eraserhead again. There was nothing he could do except stand there and watch. The tears streamed down his cheeks and shined from the moonlight when he stepped out to his small balcony. He doesn't know how long he sat there, trying to kick the horror of the night terror out of his head, but no use. Every time he closes his eyes the pictures hunt him, and prevent from him to return to his much-needed rest. He sat on the floor under the blanket of the night sky decorated with stars. It was chilly, so he brought his own cover from the bed, and watched as the sunrise came. It was still early, but already after curfew hours, so he headed back inside to brush his teeth. He changed to new clothes and put on his shoes. On his way out he moved past the shared kitchen, and grabbed a snack he was certain he wasn't going to eat later. Then he went for half a walk, half a run around the campus to clear his head. It doesn't really make these memories disappear from sight, but more like organize the domestic amount of thoughts that run through his head per second. By the time he arrived back and took a shower, his classmates were starting to settle in. The first students to show up were, as usual, Ida, and a bit more surprising, too. He sent Izuku a morning glance with a glimpse of worry that dissolved after less than a second, so he decided it must have been a mistake since Katsuki was tired from packing. The entire class was soon huddled up in front of the entrance, sending awe-filled looks over the building. UA robots carrying boxes were running around them. That's so cool. I hope I will have enough space for everything, Hagakorch, who just arrived, said to Jair. After everyone had gathered around the entrance, Eraserhead showed up to give them a tour around the dorms. The chit-chat only increased as they went past the common room, onto the shower rooms, washing machines, and finally the personal rooms. Each student got a room according to the plans. Their stuff was already brought there, so all that was left was to unbox everything. I have an idea. How about after we all finish unpacking we do a best room competition? Mina shared, pushing excitement in everyone. All right, Kirishima, Zero, and a few others yelled together. Izuku offered help that only Katsuki took, but ended up just sitting on his bed and keeping him company. It took the entire day, but late enough everyone had their room ready, or ready enough for the competition. They started going through the rooms, adoring each other's theme colors and styles. That until Izuku opened the door to his room. It's so, simple, Uraraka said, puzzled. Cut the CRP, round face. It's plain. Bakugo said the unspoken like it was no big deal. I told you guys, I don't have any stuff to decorate with. Izuku smiled sadly. This was not okay. They were not okay with it in any way. This called for a new operation. Class 1A leveling up Izuku's dorm. The entire class gave him stickers to decorate his room, and Yaoizu even made him a poster of Eraserhead that Siro taped on the wall using his quirk. Aoyama suggested covering his entire room with glitter and sparkles, but was stopped by everyone immediately. Katsuki gave him a small figure of All Might that he placed on the notebook shelf. Others like Uraraka and Kaminari gave him some colorful and funny-looking pens. After joyful and tiring 10 minutes, Izuku's little temporary home was turned from boring and depressing to happy and filled to the brim with different colors and random objects. Izuku felt the happiest and fullest he had ever felt in a while. In conclusion, Sato won after buying off the girls with an amazing cake he baked. The class was happy and ready more than ever for the summer Quirk training camp. The bus ride to the training camp was as chatty as usual. Everyone packed their stuff, ready to leave together, and buzzing with excitement. Izuku, of course, is quirkless, which means he doesn't have a quirk to train or develop. Therefore, he is going to train his muscles, physical strength, and patience, mental strength. Izuku was shaken from his daze when the bus came to a stop. He blinked, hearing half-sentences from his friends mumbling about a bathroom stop. He didn't really need to go, but he got off anyway. Imagine everyone's surprise when they looked around in the realization that they are currently in the middle of nowhere. The first thing they saw was trees. A large forest was spread all around them. The second thing they noticed was the rescue hero group, the wild pussycats. Eraserhead presented them. Izuku noticed a small black-haired kid, wearing a red cap with 2 yellow spikes, hiding near them but keeping a safe distance. The pussycats explained their location in the beast's forest, pointing out the camp's direction. Seconds later, the entire class found themselves falling off the small cliff when the ground collapsed beneath them. "Meet you at camp. Don't be late for lunch," the heroes yelled after them. Izuku ran down carefully alongside his friends, starting to head to the right direction. Some students were running, but they stopped on their tracks when mud monsters appeared all of a sudden. Probably Tiger's quirk, mud manipulation, Izuku thought. It was also the reason the cliff they stood on broke down. He looked around, everybody else already beating down the lifeless creatures with their quirks. He felt a bit lost, without a weapon or a support item, until he just started revising the movements he trained for on the streets. He kicked, dodged, and punched as much as he could logically, and until exhaustion. It was getting hotter, and the sun was way up. They probably weren't going to make it for lunch. When they finally arrived, it was like they rose from the dead. Class 1B was already there, and dinner was ready luckily for them. "Don't get used to it though. Tomorrow you will be making your own meal." Ragdoll told them with enthusiasm no one understood where she got it. After they finished eating dinner and bathing in the onsen, everybody was out like a light in their sleeping bags like tiny versions of Aizawa. The next day everyone else worked on improving their quirks. Bakugo seemed to take it to the screaming zone. Momo practiced on a faster seewisel of burning the fat she consumed. Even Todoroki started training his fire. This time though, Class 1A was put in front of an almost impossible challenge, making dinner together. For example, Momo, Ida, Todoroki, and a few other rich kids don't have any kitchen experience. They mostly helped by lighting up fires and doing mostly technical chores, or else there would be a disaster. But all of that got solved when they all discovered Bakugo can actually cook. He and Sato, the king of pastries and baking, were put in charge of the kitchen, and kept making sure everyone was doing a fine job. Meanwhile, Izuku noticed the same kid from the day before. He ran away, sending displeased glances at the heroes in training. Then he left quickly towards a blurry path in the woods. When he turned to ask Mandalay about him, she sighed and explained that the boy is her nephew, and his name is Kota. He isn't much of a hero fan. She said kindly, "I hope he is doing all right. I wasn't going to bring him, but something came up. You see, I'm his only relative." Mandalay sounded sad. "Speaking of which, I haven't seen him and I don't think he ate yet." Izuku remembered where he went and suggested to bring him a plate. She agreed gladly, thankful for Izuku's assistance. When he followed the path, he found Kota startled from his sudden showing in his personal space. "How did you get here?" "This is my secret place." He backed off slightly. Izuku placed the food in front of them both on the floor and took a few steps back, feeling bad for intruding. "I just followed your steps. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just came to bring you dinner." Mandalay pointed out, "You probably didn't eat?" Kota scanned him carefully. "Fine. You can go now," he mumbled, still not moving an inch. That night Izuku woke up from a nightmare with tears in his eyes, threatening to spill down. Everybody else was exhausted and didn't even stir in their sleep. There was still nothing he could do about it but panic in silence, since they weren't allowed to leave the building they slept in at night. He wiped his eyes and curled inside himself with the sleeping bag. For the third day, after the usual training, the Pussycats decided to run a game of fright with Class 1A versus Class 1B. That is the brave and courage test. Both classes will each one at a time hide in the woods and try to scare the other class by groups. The more people you scare, the more you win. These are the groups. Ready? The first group of Class 1B were already rushed into the forest in stampede. It was dark outside, and the shadows of the branches and the trees were leaving terrorizing shadows all over the ground. But that wasn't what felt scary. Not even the students. There was just a bad feeling that something is awfully wrong. The classes split up into pairs. While Class 1B, the scares, were hiding in the forest, Class 1A were planning in pairs how to reach the note with their names on. That was their proof that they were really in the woods. It was about to be Izuku's turn when an unfamiliar scream was heard. He didn't know the person yelling, so his first assumption was that it came from a 1B student, and that shouldn't have been possible unless they faced real danger. A large part of the forest was getting foggy, and Izuku noticed a faint scent of fire. He looked around. The sky was dark, so he looked for a better lookout spot. He climbed as much as he could, panic flooding and fogging his mind when he got a good look of the horrors. A large smoke cloud was all around them, only visible by the blue flames, dancing on the poor trees, and getting wider and wider. Mandalay seemed to be using her quirk, since he suddenly heard the oh-so-familiar voice in his head. "Everyone, this is Eraserhead. There is a villain attack. Everyone, make your way back to the main building. All students have full permission to use their quirk for self-defense." This was supposed to be a safe camp. This was never supposed to happen. Uraraka was startled by a noise in the bushes. She recoiled towards Tsuyu, while both of them prepared to fight. Then, a girl about their age jumped out of nowhere, aiming a knife at the duo. Uraraka had done her internship at the Gunhead Agency, so neutralizing the weapon sent their way wasn't much of a problem for her. She grabbed the blonde teen's hand, twisting it. The movement made the girl lose grip of her dagger, and gave Tsuyu a chance to grab it away from her. The girl was fast, and tried to reach for a second knife, but the two hero students were faster. Ochako landed a hit on her, making her lose her balance. Stumbling, the girl fell to the ground with a yelp. Uraraka placed her knee on the teen, holding one of her hands and grasping the other knife out of her reach, while Azui pinned down her other arm and wrapped her tongue around her legs in place. "Who are you? Why are you here?" Uraraka asked, huffing. The girl's blonde hair was collected in two messy buns, and she wore some school uniforms with a weird support item. "I'm Toga Himiko. And you're really cute, let's be friends." Toga smiled, a large fangs showing grin. The girls seemed to be taken aback for a few moments. "Aren't you with the League of Villains, Karo?" Azui asked, placing a finger on her cheek. Toga looked deep in thoughts. Yeah, but they really SCK, you know?" Uraraka and Tsuyo shared a glance. "And do you not want to stay there?" they said, trying to figure out the girl. "Nope, not really, as long as you're my friend," she answered cheerfully. "Then why did you try to stab us?" the brown-haired girl continued. "Because I like you." The duo seemed to notice that Toga was being completely honest with them. She seriously believed what she was saying. "Okay," Uraraka said finally. "I agree to be your friend on the condition that you don't stab anybody at all, and then we can help you leave the league. I'm Uraraka Ochako, and this is Azui Tsuyu," she claimed, both waiting to see the blonde's reaction. After a moment that stretched forever, they felt relief when they saw her nodding in agreement. Uraraka got up and stepped aside. I'm still going to need to take all your weapons. You still came from villainy after all? Toga nodded as she dropped off her support items and knives, letting the hero students help her. But maybe when this is all over you can teach us how you do your hair pretty like that, Himiko-chan? Azui continued affecting the girl, who just finished throwing away all her armory. You think I'm pretty? Toga looked surprised and naturally joyful for the first time in a while. The prettiest? Ochako confirmed, while Tsuyu nodded behind her. Let's head back to Aizawa-sensei. Izuku saw students in the forest surrounded by some kind of smoke, and Yaoyuzu making gas masks, so probably poisonous gas of some sort. He started running to help them when Mandalay's voice sounded in his head with her telepathy. Attention everyone. The villains are targeting someone named Bakugo Katsuki, and possibly a few more students. Izuku's eyes widened. They couldn't take Kachin, right? Why would they? He thought, not sure how to take it. But Mandalay wasn't done. I'm building. Also, has anyone seen Kota? I can't find him. The voice disappeared, leaving Izuku to his thoughts. He knows where Kota is. Quickly he suched directions, running towards the kid's secret hiding place, and on his way passing Mandalay. I know where he is, I'm going to get him, he told her. And he ran and ran up the same path, not looking back or waiting for a confirmation from the hero. When he finally got up to the cliff, he felt shattered. In front of Kota, the small kid, who had been through much already, stood Muscular, the large villain, who killed the hero duo water hose, who happened to be the same kid's parents. He just hoped he wasn't too late. Kota stood alone, shaking. He obviously recognized the man in front of him. But then he noticed a small blurry figure from behind, placing a finger to his mouth in a gesture of silence. That hero student from earlier. What is he doing here? He's just going to get himself killed. Kota thought, but remained quiet as requested. So, kid, Muscular started. What are you doing here? You aren't supposed to be here, you know what? Never mind, it would be a delight for me to crush your little bones. Although before I go ahead and do that, do you know where I can find a hero student in the name dashed? He was cut off abruptly. Kota's expression was terrified, and Izuku couldn't stand aside anymore. He snuck behind the guy, and used a rock he found to hit the back of the man's head efficiently. His heavy and cumbersome body fell down like a puppet torn from strings. Kota, are you okay? Izuku ran to him. Muscular stirred slightly. Kota wiped away tears and nodded. You shouldn't be here, he muttered. Izuku could only relate inside his head. Come on, you have to go back. Mandalay is really worried about you. More villains have taken over the forest, he said. But just when he came to leave, he heard a rustle behind them. He pushed Kota behind a large rock and prepared himself to fight. You lil punk. I'll kill you. Muscular stood up, a bit unsteady, but threatening more than ever. He spotted Izuku, and probably forgot or ignored the disappearance of the smaller boy, and raised a fist. Izuku prepared to block the hit, but when he was ready, expecting the worst, a splash of water came out of nowhere, disrupting the large man. Kota's hand and face peeked behind the stone cliff, tears running down. Izuku nodded at him. Go, he whispered. Muscular was off guard again, but this time when Izuku got closer he was punched a good meter away. His knees and palms got roughed up from the gravel on the ground, but he stood right back up, running to return a hit back at the guy. Muscular, who probably got a concussion, swayed on his feet, and missed another super blow aimed at Izuku by an inch. Said green-haired teen used it to flip him over on his head again. How did you get here? What is your goal? Izuku spit, huffing. The man let out a long, creepy laugh, and lost his consciousness again. Izuku ran to see if Kota was still there, which he indeed was. Come on, we have to get out of here. Can I pick you up? He asked kindly but in a rush. Kota nodded and climbed onto his back. Also, I don't think I told you my name. I'm Midoriya Izuku, but call me Izuku, he said as he hopped as fast as he could back to everyone before other villains found them. The whole forest was misty. Gas and smoke filled the air, and some students Izuku saw on the way with Kota had the gas masks Yaoyuzu made. Everyone was on the verge of quirk exhaustion. The fact that this was a quirk training camp only made matters worse. Izuku placed Kota in the main building when he heard his childhood friend attack with a yell of rage. He ran towards it, only to see a few of his classmates standing in front of some villains, but the angry blonde was nowhere in sight. He looked around in confusion until Shuji said, "Midoriya. They got Bakugo. They took Katsuki?" Before Izuku could even do the math of why he couldn't see his friend, his eyes widened. "Give him back," he demanded, and looked at the villain he was told was named Compress. The masked man played around with a turquoise marble between his fingers. So he somehow must be in there? Or was it a weapon of sorts? Look who came to the rescue. Our second target, Dabi, who stood beside Compress, said with a smirk. Izuku was only focused on the light blue glass ball that contained his childhood friend, his thoughts running faster than the normal high speed. He tried to figure out a plan to get him back safely and out of the cyan cage. "I'll offer you a deal." Dabi started, looking at the students facing him, contouring to the time that was left until outer forces would start arriving. "You come with us peacefully, and we will release explosions there." He nodded towards the marble. Everybody looked skeptic. "Why should we trust you?" Todoroki snarled. Dabi shared a glance with Twice and Compress as the familiar purple mist started spreading behind them. "We weren't told which one is the top priority. Both have the same value to us. Although, it seems like we just ran out of time." Compress answered simply as he slipped the marble in his right pocket. They all turned to leave into the portal, when Izuku jumped on Compass and ripped his coat, making multiple turquoise marbles jump on the ground. He snatched Katsuki's one and threw it back at his friends. Compress, all startled and reflexes going nuts, lost control over his quirk, breaking objects free. Random stuff appeared out of nowhere, among them Ragdoll who went missing, and of course, one very shocked Katsuki Bakugo. Before Izuku could say anything, he flinched mid-air under the touch of a hand on his shoulder. He sure is one feisty little warrior. But I guess everything must come to an end. Bye-bye now, Compress said, passing the marble containing Izuku to Dabi. They backed off towards the portal. "Deku!" Katsuki shook out of his daze, immediately making his way with loud explosions. Everyone else quickly followed as Izuku was released and held by a hand on his collarbone. Todoroki sent an iceberg their way, Tokoyami sent Dark Shadow, and Shoji ran as fast as he could. "Kachin!" Izuku tried reaching out, only to wince back as a patience-less Dabi warming up his palm. The League dissolved into the warp gate, pulling Izuku with them, and in less than a moment they were gone. Never there. The only visible proof was blue fires on the trees, and smoke all around them. Outer forces began to enter the forest. "Izuku!" Katsuki let out a frustrated scream. He just wished the other could hear him saying his name for the first time again, and he didn't care if he would see him with tears in his eyes. They were all so close to reaching him, yet so far. Policemen and an ambulance filled the surface, checking in on the injured teens and heroes, accompanying everyone to the main building and scouting the area. Shock was evident in the air. Aizawa was frantic, checking everyone and making sure no one sustained an untreatable amount of injuries. "Good you're all here. I heard the League wanted to catch you, Bakugo, so I'm glad you're all right. Have any of you seen Midoriya?" He asked them, not showing much emotion like usual, but his tone was urgent. Katsuki looked down. "They took him, sir." Aizawa's eyes widened in horror like he never thought was possible after Oboro's death. "I'm so sorry, sensei. I couldn't get to him in time." He moaned. "We all did." Tokoyami, Shoji, Ragdoll, and everyone who were close came to support that claim. Aizawa nodded, and turned to report to the detectives so fast they could feel the wind created from the spin. Everything crumbled apart. Izuku was supposed to be there, happy, not gone. Not away from what little normal life he had gained in the past months. The ride back to UA was dreadful. Half the students fell asleep, while the rest were too worried about one of their best friends. Of course their parents were worried sick even more, but UA was currently the safest option. The class sat in the common room together, slightly distracted by a conversation about future dinner planning. Recovery girl just finished healing them a second round for those who needed and left for the Class 1B dorms to check on them. I don't understand how you can be so calm about this sheet. Bakugo mumbled from the couch. Kirishima joined him. Because we know the heroes are trying to locate him right now, he said. Bakugo couldn't dare to look at the redhead. They just got him back. I didn't even get to apologize sincerely, and now he's FANG gone. He stood up. Zero moved in front of him. But it's gonna be fine, he will be back, right? Besides, you two are childhood friends. Midoriya always forgives you no matter what. You don't FING get it. I told him to frickin' kill himself, alright? The common room went silent. Only the chit-chat of students walking outside the window could be heard. Now leave me alone. Katsuki got up violently and went to his dorm room, slamming the door behind him.